The D and Davis Show.
D and Davis Show. We got a lot to get into today. Definitely to help us with today's show, we're going to talk the NCAA Tournament and a little bit of betting. Expert, you can find him here where we record at 6 a.m. to score, and also writing for the Action Network HQ. Eli Hershkovich is going to join us. Yesterday, he was also on Chicago Sports Talk Live. So go make sure you go watch that and take that in and suck in all the Eli. I meant when I said suck it in. And then to help us with opening day with America's pastime, friend of the show, great guy, Jared Wyllys. You can find his writing with the Sporting News, Forbes Sports, and the Chicago Mag is going to join us to break down the MLB and the goings-on the north side and the south side. We got a lot to get into. I want to talk a little bit about the Powerade Jam Fest yesterday. A little bit of Cliff Kingsbury trying to sit there and through the smoke screen on Josh Rosen fitting in his offense. Conor McGregor, is he out there wilding sexually?
What?
Yeah, sexually. And Frank Hoiberg stealing some money. I'm Kenneth Davis, and you know the next voice you hear. He was just on Sports Feed this past weekend with Josh Friedman. I don't know what the hell he had on. His name is?
D. I had what you mean. I had a blazer.
You had on some jeans?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay. Come on.
What's wrong with jeans? Jeans and a blazer and a nice button-up.
Yeah,
I
like your button-up.
Summer living right there.
Thank you, brother.
Funny
Thank you,
thing,
Ryan.
it's not the summertime.
So what? I'm living it. Living my best life.
Getting out in front.
Hey, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at D and Davis Show. Once again, it's at D and Davis Show. Let's see. We're on, that's the Instagram I said before, Facebook.com/D and Davis Show. Snail mail, email, dndavisshow@gmail.com. iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Music, Stitcher, and the TuneIn app is where you can find the podcast, D and Davis The Show and D and Davis The Flip. Recorded right here at 670 The Score. I'm on Twitter at Demons1, DEMONZE1. Ken's on Twitter at That's Davis. New executive producer of the show with Mr. Ryan B. Ryan, what's your Twitter handle again?
Ryan B. Ski.
There you go.
And what's your last name again?
Bukovetsky.
Bukovetsky. Ryan Bukovetsky. I'm going to get it right eventually.
Well, to be fair, you're pretty close right now.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Buck or book?
I go with book. You got to put that book, a vet, ski.
Bukovetsky.
Oh, a vet ski.
A Vetsky.
Bukovetsky. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ryan
Real easy
Bukovetsky.
right there.
Well, we want to welcome Ryan to the show.
Thank you, D.
Our new executive producer.
Our whack-ass former executive producers in the room.
You bum! Get out of here, you bum!
But make sure this Thursday you tune into Lawrence Holmes' midday show.
Yes.
What is it, Lawrence? Afternoons? How did Lawrence say it again, Tony?
He says mid-afternoons?
Yeah, mid-afternoons.
Yeah.
Executive produced by the one and only Tony Gill. So make sure you check out T.
Tony's still hanging out around us.
Just for a little while.
I know. It's all right, though.
Bum ass. Can't trust that dude.
Get out. Where's my phone?
But look, all right, so waking up this morning, first of all, I upgraded all my cable boxes. I had the oldest of the old because I was holding on to old DVR material.
I don't know why you still DVR stuff. You can find everything online.
You don't watch anything, do you?
I do watch stuff.
You watch Marvel stuff, and then
do.
for sports, you get a little excerpt of what's going on, and then you go about your day. You don't watch stuff.
What are you?
I need to be able to rewind, fast forward, record, and I don't need buffering or anything of that
But this
nature.
isn't like you watching the 707 drill or 11:11. What are you watching that you need to record and rewind?
I see. You don't see the necessary.
Well, what?
If you don't know, you
Give me
don't
something.
know.
Give me something,
When I'm
brother.
breaking down this stuff, I need it at my fingertips. All
You
right.
can find everything online.
But
Okay, go
I
ahead.
ended up, the crazy thing in that, when I did it Sunday before meeting up with D at C2E2, I would sit there on the phone with them and I'm like trying to negotiate a deal. They gave me nothing. Took my boxes in, and I only wanted one DVR box. They gave me two because I had to. But I ended up going to, and the funny thing too, this is sad. I go in Hyde Park to the Comcast.
I went to the new one.
Yeah, you go in there. It's huge. It's pretty. It's nice. So I go in there. Cool, whatever. Leave. Go to C2E2 CD down there. Shaka. Shout out to Shaka for meeting us at C2E2.
Yes. Shout out to Shaka.
So then yesterday it hit me though. I was supposed to take my modem and switch it out, but I didn't take my modem, right? I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna have all this brand new, and I got this old modem, right? So I ended up, after therapy yesterday, taking my modem before I picked up the kids. And the lady was like, well, this modem here, you're supposed to have a technician to put it in. Like, the one you have is kind of the newer one, but I think they may have had another one, but she was like, mine was kind of new. But she was like, this one, you need a technician. I was like, nah, you can just give it to me. I'll figure it out. Right? So she gave it to me. Sat there, finally got it home, turned it on. And you know, like when we do the flip, I would start to put together the flip on Saturdays, and part of the reason it always slows me down and sometimes we're running a little late is that my laptop takes forever, especially to open up some of those pages. Like USA Today, is so much on that page, it can take forever, especially if you open up 2 or 3 tabs at the same time. So it hit me when I got home and I put the Wi-Fi modem together. I was like, let me go check and see. And I was like, let me open up USA Today. And I'm going to just start clicking on everything, right? Man,
click.
my Wi-Fi is flying right now, boy. I'm like, listen, I got to the office today, right? And this is the first time I start clicking open stuff. I said, my Wi-Fi at home is faster than the one here at the office.
And you on a hard line at the office.
Yeah, I said, my Wi-Fi was flying yesterday.
So it wasn't the laptop, it was
the Wi-Fi.
It was the Wi-Fi.
It was the Wi-Fi.
Well, how far are you from your Wi-Fi?
I'm in the basement. And this is the good thing. So I tried to negotiate. You know how they got those pods?
I was thinking about buying some.
I was like, so y'all not going to give me nothing? You can't throw the pods in? No, she was going to tell me no. You can't even throw the pods in? Right? And say it in an aggressive manner. Oh, anyway, I got into it with somebody else yesterday. But,
Lord.
So anyway, when I went out to 111th and they're behind glass and they give you your equipment through a sealed door, I'm like, wait, and it's behind the police station. Like, directly behind the police station.
They don't care.
I'm like, I don't think this is necessary. How many people are paying y'all straight cash?
Where's your receipt at?
Yeah.
Give me your receipt first. Okay, then I'm going to put your box in and turn it around.
So that was interesting. But then I was supposed to have an appraiser come past the house yesterday.
Okay.
Right? And the appraiser, I talked to the appraiser last Tuesday. He called me. I was at work. I saw who it was, told him, hey, I'm at work, told him my availability. He was like, hey, I have to go to therapy at 1:30. What? He was like, cool, thank you, whatever. So I'm starting getting hit up, and it's like, the appraiser's like, no one's there. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been out of the shower. I just took the garbage out. I'm here. It's 10 o'clock. Dude was supposed to show up at 10 o'clock. So I called this dude. I'm like, hey, this is Kenneth Davis. Hey, Vladimir, this is Kenneth Davis.
Vladimir?
Yeah, Vladimir. Hey, Vladimir, this is Kenneth Davis. What's going on? And he raises his voice like, I was just there. I said, hold up. I have your voicemail and I have our text conversation. Do you need to see it? Because he was like, because he told me after I said it, he was like, I don't have your number. I said, dude, we have a text conversation. I can screen. I
hold it, cat?
No.
Okay, all right.
I already hit screenshot the text conversation, right? I'm like, do you need to see it?
He raised my voice at me, click.
This was before. This was before I talked to him that I screenshot it. So I tell him that, and dude starts to be like, okay, I'm about to come back. This dude had basically, I don't even know if he had left because the car he was in front of my house. But when he came back and when he got to my house and seen I was a big black guy, he checked himself.
He calmed down.
He checked himself. I was in my nice sweatpants and my t-shirt. My chest was massive.
I thought you was gonna say you had your robe on with a do-rag on.
No, I was butt naked. Like what's his name? He used to play like with Harrison with the Steelers with 2 Glocks in my hand,
square in my mouth.
But yeah,
Vladimir, what's up?
That's been my last couple of days.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I woke up this morning and I saw Jusuf Nurkic. They said it was a Paul George. I don't even think that was a Paul George. Jusuf Nurkic is the center for the Portland Trailblazers. Gruesome injury yesterday.
Yeah, man.
Good thing on First Take they did not First Take. Get Up. They didn't play it on Get Up. But
they didn't show it really until later on throughout the day.
Unfortunately,
until the day.
I had to find it. I had to see it myself. I mean, I did.
This is the first time I can actually say, because usually I go out and try to search for those videos. I didn't even want to see it.
It was fine. That's fine that you did.
No, but I eventually saw it. I didn't search for it, but I eventually saw it.
Because actually, the real reason I say initially not to say I wouldn't want to see it anyway, when they compared it to Paul George, I thought it was another stance issue. And I have an issue with the stance, how close it is.
Yeah.
Right? So I wanted to see, was it a stance issue? It wasn't a stance issue.
It was just talking about the simple break of his leg.
Yeah, just how he broke his leg.
D and David show.
So went to see it, and Lord have mercy.
It was bad. Well, the reason why it was so bad because he's so damn tall. He's 7. Is he 7 feet?
Yeah, he's 7 feet.
Probably more than 7 feet.
Man, the breaking sound that I heard on my phone Mind you, I mean, of course, the mic isn't as far as he's under the rim as you were just telling Ryan.
Yeah.
But it was gruesome and it was terrible. And, man, he's going to go through a lot, but I hope he definitely comes back.
Listen, this is the second time he's broken his leg. He broke his other leg before.
Okay.
It's been reported.
Was that in the NBA? Do you know or not?
Was he in the NBA? I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I wonder if it was at this type of break, too.
I don't know. Maybe
this is a
not.
compound fracture.
It's a compound fracture,
All right,
yes. He came down. It seems as if he just came down on the side of his foot, and his weight just took him over.
Yeah.
But this is the weird thing, man. This is a very weird thing. This is it's like starting to happen a lot now within the NBA. Not a lot, but you had Paul George,
Gordon Hayward.
Now him. It's like it's like a good amount of time frame, maybe about 5 to 6 years. We've seen 3 compound fractures like this. Yeah. I mean, it could just be a freak nature. Things happen to the human body when it's under stress, and he's coming down, hit the side of his foot. It happened. But I mean, not to glaringly like that, but man, it was gruesome. I saw it on Twitter. It's like, man, I heard it. Somebody said like, "Yeah, I heard that. I heard the pop." I'm like, what? So when I was watching Get Up because I'm at home with the little one. She's on spring break right now, so the first 2 days I've been home. Yeah. So I saw it on Twitter. I woke up in the morning, I'm like, man, this sounds bad. And then they started talking about it on ESPN, and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to see it because eventually I think I am going to see it. And sure enough, later on today, I think it was on PTI. I think I saw it. They played the real thing. Yeah, they didn't play that sound with it.
It was a sound.
They didn't play the sound with it. They just showed it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Pretty bad. So thoughts out to that brother, man. He's gonna be out for a while. Obviously, he probably might come back at the end of next season. Portland's pretty good. They're gonna make the playoffs, but he probably won't be right until that following season because that injury was so bad.
Shout out to that Enos Cancer pickup.
Yeah.
Definitely helps Portland, who's not going to go anywhere anyway. But real quick, I definitely want to talk a little bit about the Powerade Jam Fest, which had all the kids from the McDonald's All-American game. Definitely some interesting kids. You got this one cat, Cole Anthony. I'm unsure. Tony, have you seen Cole Anthony?
I haven't watched any high school basketball.
Oh, how dare you?
Where is he from?
I'm sure where the kid is from.
Ryan, have you seen him?
I have not.
Got big gonads, point guard.
You saw him through the short or something?
He was in the slam dunk contest and the 3-point contest.
Okay.
Wherever college, he's undecided with his colleges. Okay. I know, but Duke isn't in there. UNC, I believe maybe Kentucky's in there. He had about 4 or 5 colleges that he
a PG?
Yeah, he a point guard. He was in both of them. He was a couple of kids, a couple of tall 6'9" dunkers. One of them boys was bad. Like, I'm watching it with Kenson, and I'm explaining to him, and the funny thing is the announcer, right after I said it, I'm like, a lot of people don't like tall people dunking because it doesn't seem as extreme as a shorter person. Yeah. And the announcer says it,
doesn't look
but
the same.
The body control that the kid exemplified, well, if you really like dunking, like I think people, like underrated slam dunk contest participant was Josh Smith. We all know Josh Smith is a tremendous athlete. But if you saw what Josh Smith was doing with his entire body when he was dunking, he wasn't just yamming it. The control of his feet and where they were placed, it's very important when you're dunking. Like so one of these young men, I'm sorry I forget his name, his whole body was the one exclamation point, basically. He was phenomenal in it. And then you had young Bran Balabi.
All the excitement, everyone up. That's a winner right there. That's got to be an 80. I'll tell you what was even more spectacular. She didn't start at half court. She started at the 3-point line with the crowd around her and the cape to finish it off.
Who's going to go to Stanford. We've already seen her in highlights dunking games in high school.
High school, yeah.
She missed on the first one a couple times, but the fact that she's 6'1", and you mentioned that you didn't know she was 6'1".
I know she was that short.
So when the announcer was talking to her, and then he talked to the Cole Anthony kid, because when the announcer was talking to her, I'm like, this dude is not 6'5". Because that's when I was like, damn, this little girl isn't 6'6" or 6'4".
Yeah.
Right? I'm like,
flying.
I'm 6'1", jumping off vert.
You don't see this.
Yeah.
Especially coming to high school, and I make the point of, she's probably going to get stronger as she's get older. When you go to college, you're going to work out more.
I worry about her knees.
You worry about her knees, but man, if she gets any stronger, you're going to see this consistently throughout the year. Yeah. She's going to yam follow somebody.
Yes.
She's going to have a poster. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
No
they're
doubt.
already throwing off the backboard. She went under the rim and came up. Kind of think this dunk that's kind of known as more of the Kobe dunk now. It was phenomenal to see what she did. Everyone was behind her. Everyone was rooting for her. This is the first time since Candace Parker that a lady had won the slam dunk contest for the Power Jam. It was pretty. It was pretty good, especially watching it with my son and kind of breaking down stuff to him and talking to him. And even like if he went upstairs for a second, I'm like, oh, and then him coming back downstairs. I'm like, man, like watch this right here. He's like, oh, like to see where the game is going. And now some of these kids. It's going to be a pretty interesting one and done season next.
So
season.
it's going back to the young lady that was out there dunking. What's her first name again? I'm sorry,
Fran.
Fran.
Or Francesca.
Francesca. Yes, Fran. Now, are we seeing right before our eyes kind of the evolution of female athletes when it comes to basketball? Like we said before, she's only 6'1". Typically, you see this with Candace Parker, Lisa Leslie. Those ladies are like 6'4" and up. I think Lisa Leslie's like 6'6". Brittany Griner, she's like 6'8". Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see it with this. I wonder, are we seeing the evolution of the athlete right before our eyes, and maybe like another year or two, it'll still be uncommon, but you might now, instead of having one, you might have three. And then a couple of years after that, maybe not might have three, maybe you might have two more. Because the human body, man, it's crazy, because once you start teaching yourself how to do things, or you trying to experiment, it's like, I'm just going to try to dunk and work my body up to that point, you're going to start seeing it. So it'll be very
you still
interesting.
gotta have genes.
Listen, anybody out there playing professional basketball at any level, you gotta have some good genes.
No,
we're talking about the height though.
There was there was a leaper in her past history.
Yeah, probably.
Right. She may be from the Danka tribe, but I mean, just like if anybody knows the history of them, they are one of their things is they're always jumping
high.
Right.
Like right.
But I mean, like, the only reason I would say hold up, because I mean that we have seen the ladies that you mentioned, Duncan. I think she is encased what we would look at as a and of course she's taller than him, but just comparable. She's a lot more like a Nate Robinson, as far as
Nate Robinson was 5'8".
Yeah, like, and I'm not saying Spud Webb, but she's out. The thing that makes her is not being tall, and I don't know if there's going to be in 3 years 5 young ladies who can do that.
No, maybe not 5. Maybe
that's a rarity.
It's rare, but
so
I mean, just
to your
see
evolution point,
right?
I don't think it'll be enough young ladies for us to say that it's necessarily an evolution. To where it's like, damn, it's Tony, who always talks about they don't dunk in women's basketball. Well, Tony's gonna start tuning in because they starting to yam all over.
Yeah, I
the
know,
place.
right?
Damn, they yam. Did you see her yam?
She just yammed it all over Brittany Griner.
So
You know what I'm saying?
I don't necessarily see that taking place.
Well, I mean, we have seen, even without, like, to say football. What do we always say? The bigger, the stronger, the faster. We kind of seen that now. It wasn't like over 2 or 3 years. It's been over about 20, 25 years. But it's kind of interesting to think about that, just the evolution of the human body and what they can do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible for this evolution happening, but it's not going to happen, I think, in the short time frame that you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, look at how it's progressing. We're seeing more and more female athletes doing the quote-unquote male stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, 20 years, yeah. But
maybe 25 years.
2 years, you're not getting that.
Maybe when your girl is ready to go.
Maybe she might be the one out there flying and yamming.
Nah, I want my little girl to keep her knees nice and young.
They'll have robotic knees.
I know, right? Let's put some braces on it, man. Let's put some braces on it. Like, you know
you're
what?
really not supposed to be playing in braces like that if you
I'm
don't
just
need
saying,
them.
hey, do you want to save your knees or not?
That's kind of
I
nice.
know.
It's not going to save you. Yeah, okay.
Sleeves in. Put some sleeves on your knees. This should save you. This should save your MCLs. Because women do blow them out a lot. A lot. I don't know. You know what? Do they blow them out a lot when they play volleyball, though? That's a lot of. It's not that extensive jumping, but you look at.
You don't have to do the lateral.
It's the lateral movement.
It's the same lateral
right.
movement you don't have to do in volleyball.
Exactly. I mean, you don't have that, but you do have a lot of running. Soccer, I think there's probably a high percentage of it. Yes. I know the highest thing when it comes to women's soccer is concussions, and I don't know if they ever got to the point with CTE, but concussions are very high when it comes to women's soccer. But
clearly, Hope Solo has CTE. Clearly. If I was Hope Solo needs to holler at me right now. I could have got you off on all those charges with the CTE rep. I'm like, she got CTE.
Well, now it's like something that you could probably.
I'm saying that's what Hope she should have hollered at. Her brother would have took care of her if she just would have hollered at me. Look, switching real quick to a little bit of baseball. Jared Wyllys will help us break down baseball a little bit later. Cal Hendricks got paid today.
Yes, he did.
It wasn't the
4-year extension.
He got a little change.
Yeah. I mean, but
you can control the ball a little bit. You go a little change for you.
But you know what? I'm not mad at the signing though, because he's not a guy that you can see a potential like injury from.
No, that's
he's
what,
a control
that's why
guy.
they signed him, yeah.
It's
But he's
a
a guy
good
that-
signing though for him.
He's a guy that going down the line, they're
How old
looking
is
at
he?
as being at the front of their rotation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I'm at the front of your rotation, break me off a little bit more scratch. I mean, now he's not DeGrom, but DeGrom finally, the Mets finally took care of that business with DeGrom.
Yeah, finally though.
Yeah, and we saw over the weekend that Chris Sale got paid on Saturday. I saw an article on ESPN. I didn't get a chance to check it out. I need to. I will later. But Oli was breaking down the fact that he doesn't like the Chris Sale deal, and I think it has to do with age, probably, and the fact
He's 29.
Yeah,
Yes.
but the fact also that Chris Sale, as a Red Sox, has been towards the the latter half of the season wearing down. And what happens when he basically if he goes? Remember here, and it never happened, and I hope it never comes to fruition. The question was always his style of pitching and how he his stance necessarily, his delivery, and the fear that one day that arm was basically going to give out because of how wicked it necessarily looked. But it's definitely good, even though to see these pitchers getting paid, even though they're still not getting paid the type of money that David Price got paid.
Now, interesting though, with talking about pay, I saw this today too. 8 teams this baseball year coming up will have a salary cap over. No, 3 teams going to have a salary cap over $200 million, and 8 teams are going to have a salary cap under $100 million. So I guess this way you ask a question. Okay. Number one, I love to ask Jared this. One, when is the strike going to happen? Because the inequity of that right there is crazy. It's crazy. 2, you look at where the players are saying, as we said before, the salary cap has not salary cap. The average, the signing averages went down this past year. But like I said before, they just gave out $1 billion to like 10 guys, 8 or 10 guys, something like that. So the money is really out of whack when it comes to Major League Baseball. They're making money. I think if any, I want to say they've been making more money, not in the NBA, NFL, but their numbers have been high with their gates being down so low. That's what it is. The gates have been very low, but their revenue is going right through the roof. And if you're a Darvish, or not Darvish, if you're a Hendricks or you're a DeGrom, you're not getting that kind of money.
DeGrom should have got more money.
But you look around and you turn around, you see Trout got almost $500 million, and you're arguably one of, if not the best pitcher in major leagues.
Chris Sale set the market.
He did.
He got like $3 million. I think he got Chris Sale got 135. I think DeGrom got 137.
137?
Chris Sale set the market. That all they was waiting for to see what Sale got.
Yeah.
Chris Sale set the market, and man, listen, I'm happy. Look, it's funny, and again, mentioning that Jared Wyllys will be joining us later, and I'm reading some of his articles a little bit earlier, talking about how teams like the White Sox are going to be in trouble. And I mentioned this to y'all when we were up in the office, as far as how they messed up with Manny, because with these players signing and these free agents these players before they hit free agency not wanting to go into free agency and sticking with their team, teams like the White Sox who believe that they're going to fill in these holes through free agency, it's not going to happen like that because these guys are signing up. Well,
that's when you look at although the White Sox are in Chicago, the 3rd biggest market in the league, but they're a small market mind. They had a small market mindset. They are literally just trying to go through the farm system. That's it. I mean, you look at what happened
to the San Diego Padres.
You look at what happened with Eloy Jimenez. Hasn't played a second of Major League ball, and they already signed him to a $45 million deal. And it can reach up to like 70 or something like that.
72.
72. So they're locking in these minor league dudes. Because you look at you can do both. You can do both, no doubt. You definitely can do both. But if you see, as you said before, they're like locking up. The teams are starting to lock up their stars so early. What is it going to be out there to get these big time free agents? And then you have Jerry Reinsdorf and the family like, yeah, you know what? No, we're not going to give you that much money. So I'm with you, Ken. What are they going to do? What are they going to do?
And look, real quick, when we were talking about it, this weekend, I mentioned that even when the Sox were ready to contend, let's say this was if they had signed Manny Machado got an opt-out at around, I believe this 31, 5 years into that contract, that year, his 31 year, he got an opt-out. I was saying how the fourth year, if need be, the Sox could have looked into dealing him and acquire more assets. And that way, you had him for 4 seasons already, or 3 seasons rather, but still you pimped him into getting something else, perhaps somebody else who's close to going to free agency that you could assign yourself. You look at him as another trinket in your box of tools that you can flip out, that you can use to acquire younger, perhaps even talent moving forward, and to help these players going forward. That's your core. And I think a lot of Sox fans got swept up in the Eloy signing. I'm disappointed because they were going to sign Eloy anyway. Like, don't give me that. He was going to get signed because they want to avoid, because they know they're going to have to pay him a lot of money, and they don't want to get to they have to pay him $300 million like that.
It's smart business move from what they did, and I kind of understand why Sox fans are excited, because you're like, you know what? Now we have this young guy in our system, and we're going to have him for. Anywhere. But this is the thing. I think they just know it for sure now.
Yeah, but
I think it's kind of like we see the paper.
But he was going to get re-signed. They were going to do this regardless. Like, they were going to sit there. We go back to the Troy Tulowitzki, Evan Longoria time when this kind of Chris Sale, Quintana, where these guys getting locked in like this. You look at Snell with Tampa Bay getting the same thing, and he was the best pitcher perhaps in the majors last year, at least in the American League. Like, you're going to do that anyway. So don't sit there and tell me because you did something anyway, I should applaud you. That's common sense. What's more is common sense is when you're a market that you know you have to overpay to get someone to come into your market, you just take care of your business. But
you know that they're not going to take care of their business.
I know. I'm not saying it. So that's why I'm not going to give them props on the Eloy thing. Yeah. But again, Jared Wyllys is going to definitely help us later on the show to break down that. But right now we're going to switch to a little bit of NCAA, and we're going to have Eli Hershkovich. Make sure you check out his writings at the Action Network HQ, and also follow him at Eli Hershkovich. He's going to join us coming up after he gets off of Sport Talk Live. He is superstar. He is star. Dan Davis here, recording out of 670 The Score.
Yo, what's up? This is Rashid Hadi, and you're listening to the D and Davis Show. Yeah.
D and Davis Show, and right now we are joined by the other Score superstar. We got Tony Gill in studio being quiet editing. But we have a producer and writer. Make sure you check out all his writings on the Action Network HQ, not just about sports, but also about sport gambling, because I don't know how much money Eli's banking, but...
Eli getting that money.
Yeah, Eli, look, what's your bankroll looking like right now?
I don't like to disclose that kind of information, but had a nice 7-1 stretch against the spread from Saturday into Sunday. So it's been a nice little March Madness run here so far.
Eli, real quick, since you've gotten in early, betting is exploding. We know Joe O here is going to be doing late nights at 670 The Score. He's another great sports gambling guy to follow. Let me ask you, when did it not just become sports, or has it always not just been sports, but when did the gambling become something that you became super interested in?
Well, you brought up Joe, and it was really Joe Ostrowski, who got me into it. I loved college basketball before that, was covering it more so from just a reporter's perspective before Joe got me into sports gambling. And then now that I'm, with Action Network, it's kind of been you're gambling on college basketball every single day. So it's become a lifestyle, unfortunately, and I guess in some worse ways than others. But definitely Joe Ostrowski was the key to me getting into sports gambling.
And Eli, before we get into more of the tournament, how do you feel, or what's your thoughts on the state coming up saying that, here in Illinois, going to be able to bet on sports?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, it will be interesting to see what happens in terms of at venues, because or even just grocery stores, 7-Elevens. Joe Ostrowski was on the Mully and Haw show with David Haw and Layla Rahimi earlier this morning, as in Tuesday, and he was bringing up how it's basically going to be like the lottery in some senses than none, just in terms of how you're going to be able to do it at just markets and things like that. And I don't think it's going to come to venues right away. I know the Chicago Cubs have been more accepting of that. They've invested, speaking of investments, invested in the Action Network. So, but you have to have the other sports teams in Chicago also to jump along with that. But the fact that it could come in May is very exciting.
Dean Davis on the line right now. We have Eli Hershkovich. Follow him at Eli Hershkovich, score producer here at 670 The Score where we record. Lucky enough. Eli, listen, I read your article today about the money rollover. It was pretty insightful. I had never even thought about gambling in that way. Break down some of the points for some people that are naive as far as what the money rollover is and why you feel that it's really beneficial in someone gambling right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thanks for checking that out. And you think about, so right now, the team that I focused on in that article was the Houston Cougars, and you can find that on the actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app as well. And with Houston specifically, about 33-1 to win a national title. I got them future odds-wise at 125-1 a couple months ago. So obviously the value has lessened. But from a betting perspective, someone might say, well, that's still pretty good value. You're talking about a number 3 seed that gets a Kentucky team on Friday, likely going to be without P.J. Washington with his injury, and he's one of the better scorers and one of the better bigs in college basketball. But the money line rollover is so important, especially when you're in the Sweet 16, when the value for future betting has declined tremendously when you think about from the beginning of the tournament even and going back to a month ago. So the key to money line rollover is you're investing in a game-by-game scenario, taking the money line. So right now, Houston is about plus 125 on the money line to beat Kentucky. You might say that's not that much. You know, they're getting 2.5 points. Might as well just take 2.5 or bet on a Houston future. But if you're able to secure that plus 125, so you bet $100, you're able to get 125 out of that. So you're plus 225 overall on the wager. But then with the money line rollover, you're betting that 225 on your next Houston money line bet. So let's say against UNC, they're 5-point dogs, and you're talking about plus 300-ish on the money line. You're betting the 225 on the plus 300 money line, the $225 that you just won on the Kentucky-Houston money line, assuming the Cougars pull that one off on Friday in the Sweet 16. And then if they win that game, you're talking about another money line rollover. So the value in that is, if you think about future odds, again, like I mentioned, Houston 33-1 to win a national title right now. If you do the money line rollover consistently, round by round, and there's no lock that they're going to win a title, but the fact is that with the money line rollover, you can pull your money back out after a couple rounds if you would rather just if you don't like their Final Four matchup, and you think about who they might face in the Final Four: Tennessee, Virginia, Purdue, which is completely understandable if you don't like how they match up against those teams. But let's just say they go on to win the title with the money line rollover. You're talking about 300-1 value. So from 33-1 value to 300-1 value is flat out ridiculous. That's why at this point in the stage of March Madness, the money line rollover is the way to go.
So Loyola in that last year, that must have been crazy if somebody was doing a money roll.
Oh my God! Yeah, I
can't
imagine. I can't imagine doing that. I mean, the future odds alone were pretty nice if you somehow pulled that off. But you bring that up. So if you had a future bet on Loyola Chicago last year, and they went to the Final Four, hedging it would have been fine. So you're taking the other side of the game. And let's say you hedged on Michigan to beat Loyola Chicago because you had the Loyola Chicago future and you didn't like the Ramblers' odds to win that game, which was understandable. And Michigan dominated that latter part of the second half to knock out the Ramblers out of the tournament. With the money line rollover, you don't have to hedge, and hedging isn't a bad thing. But it's more profitable, as I mentioned, with the 300-1 value. If Houston wins the title, let's just say it's much more profitable to go money line rollover at this point.
Eli, now when it comes to money line rollovers, does this only apply to the tourney or any tournament, the playoffs? Does it apply to the regular season also?
More so just the NCAA tournament. Again, because you're trying to find value in where's the dog. If you're taking a favorite on the money line rollover, even if you take Kentucky in the first round and you continue that, so on and so on, the value isn't going to be there because they're more or less going to be a favorite in any matchup. But Houston, with the exception of Oregon, if those two teams somehow met in the Final Four, I don't expect that to happen, but let's just say it happens. Houston, that's the only matchup Houston can be a favorite in the rest of the way. So they're going to be a dog the rest of the way, 99%, if they end up making a deep run into the Final Four, into the national title game, which I think is realistic. People don't like this Houston team because, well, Calvin Sampson was a cheater in Indiana. First of all these coaches across college basketball are shooters. So you can't just pull that out of me. And then Calvin Sampson also led an Oklahoma team back in the early 2000s to a Final Four. And a lot of those guards that were dynamic and great defensively with ball pressure are on this Houston staff. And it's very similar in terms of the way these guards operate with their ball pressure, with Corey Davis, Armani Brooks, Galen Robinson, Dejan Giroux off the bench to that Oklahoma team. This Houston team is so dangerous. And if you don't invest now against the Kentucky team that's going to be without one of the best players, you're losing a lot of value.
Let me ask you this before we jump into the games and the wins and losses. As far as who's the best bet right now, and not as far as Houston because they're a team that a lot of people don't look at as that can win it all, but who's kind of in the mid-tier that has a chance to actually win it all that you can get the best money on?
Texas Tech right now to me is the sleeper that no one wants to talk about because everyone's on John Beilein and the Michigan Wolverines, who they're going to face in the Sweet 16. Red Raiders right now 20-1 is a futures bet. And that's not the worst thing in the world. You might be able to get better value on the money line rollover depending on what their matchups are the rest of the way. Let's say Texas Tech faces Florida State in the Elite Eight and FSU knocks off Gonzaga. Then Texas Tech would be a favorite in the Elite Eight. So from that sense, the future, and obviously, like I mentioned, with moneyline rollover, the value isn't as high as when you're a favorite compared to when you're a dog, which Houston will be for much of the way if they make a run. This Red Raiders defense is, we want to talk about ball pressure with Houston. Chris Beard is one of the best defensive coaches, if not the best defensive coach in college basketball. I know Michigan has Luke Yaklich, and he's one of the best, basically a defensive coordinator for that Michigan Wolverines team, as John Beilein mans the sidelines as the head coach. And Beilein is one of the best offensive schemers in the country. But what that Texas Tech defense is going to make Michigan do is the inability to penetrate the lane to kick it out to the three-point shooting. You're talking about, in terms of the Big Ten Conference, which Michigan is in, one of the most three-point reliant teams in the conference. I think they have the second highest three-point scoring rate, which is where's the majority of your points coming from. For the Wolverines in Big Ten play, it's coming from the perimeter. Jordan Poole, even Iggy Brazdeikis, the freshman who likes to pull it out from deep with a Lithuanian forward for them. But again, Texas Tech's ball pressure, I think, is going to limit Michigan's ability to attack the basket, to create off the bounce, and to kick it out to the three-point shooting. And then you talk about scoring rate. Michigan gives up the highest two-point scoring rate in the country. So as good as their defense is, we're talking about the second highest, or the second lowest adjusted defensive efficiency in college basketball, which is opponents' points per 100 possessions. Michigan gives up a lot inside, and that is where Texas Tech gets the most of their points, with Jarrett Culver and Tariq Owens, the St. John's transfer, even after losing two of their starters last year and a lottery pick. This Tech team is ridiculously loaded on the defensive end. I like them to knock off Michigan. I like them to get to the Final Four, and from there, who knows?
D and Davis Show recording right here at 670 Score. On the line with us right now, Eli Hershkovich. Make sure you follow Eli on Twitter at Eli Hershkovich. He's a producer here at 670 Score and writer for Action Network HQ. All right, Eli, let's hop into the tournament. The biggest game so far, the most exciting game at least, was this past Sunday. You had Duke and VCF.
UCF.
UCF. I'm sorry, UCF. I'm looking at my bracket seeing VCU. I'm sorry about that.
You're good.
But let me ask you this. Do you think they kind of laid out a way to at least slow down Duke on their next upcoming matchup with Virginia Tech? They was able to kind of slow them down. We already kind of knew that Duke isn't the best shooting team, but do you think they kind of laid out for further matchups against Duke for other teams?
100%. And you think about this Elite Eight or the Sweet 16 matchup, I don't know if Virginia Tech is going to knock them off, because you're talking about a high-tempo team in the Hokies and a Blue Devils team that wants to do the exact same thing with Barrett, Williamson, Cam Reddish, Trey Jones in transition, even to Laurier around the basket. Their starting center, Marquise Bolden, in that mix as well. But Vatek plays a zone, a matchup zone, which they did against Duke when they beat him in Blacksburg earlier in ACC play. And I know Zion wasn't in that game. I know he didn't play for the latter part of Duke's ACC conference slate, but neither was Virginia Tech's point guard Justin Robinson. And he might be one of the most important players in the country because of his ability to distribute and get Virginia Tech's offense rolling. So the matter of the fact is that was an impressive win regardless of Zion's not playing in that Tech game in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech has gotten the best of Duke the last 3 times they played them at home. I think they covered the 7.5, so they're getting 7.5 there. And a Tech team that gives up a lot of threes, Duke doesn't shoot it well. They'll go to a zone because of that. And then you think about Tech's offense. While Duke doesn't give up a lot of threes either, if you're able to control the tempo, and by that, I know both teams like to push the pace, but if you're able to limit Duke's offensive efficiency because of your zone defense and control the pace and get out and running with Robinson and Nikhil Walker-Alexander, and even Ahmed Hill to an extent, Outlaw 2 could shoot it off the bench as well. Blackshear's a matchup nightmare for Zion, assuming Tech can keep Duke in the half court at times. Virginia Tech is going to be able to get their clean 3-point looks like they did against Duke in their lone ACC matchup this season. And the key to that game was, because Robinson didn't play their starting point guard, you were able to run through Blackshear on the block. Now, it's going to be tougher to do that against Duke because Zion's likely going to be matched up against Blackshear or DeLaurier. But Blackshear is a high post center, like if, for people who want to go back to Loyola Chicago last year, Cameron Krutwig is essentially a point center, point forward from the elbow, from the free throw line. That's what Blackshear does, and he even does it from the low post too. A really good passing big. I expect Virginia Tech to be able to hang around with Duke because of that and keep this close and cover the spread at least.
Now, moving over to the South bracket, this is a question of who do you believe in more? One team a lot of people are always kind of looking at is like, I don't know about them. They got to go farther than just give it up is Virginia. And then you have, as Ken is booing them, and then you have Oregon, the number 12 seed. Which team do you believe in more?
Yeah, I know this Virginia team is susceptible, and I'm with you guys on that because I don't hate the slow pace, but when you're unable to shoot the three consistently, and they do shoot the threes consistently, this is the best offense Tony Bennett's ever had at UVA. But when they lost like they were against FSU when they lost by 10 in the ACC semifinal in the conference tournament, you're not able to come back in games because you have a limited possession rate on a game-by-game basis. FSU plays at a high tempo like we've seen so far in the tournament when they ran Murray State out of the gym last weekend. So I do like Virginia in this matchup, though, not in the long term, but in this Oregon matchup. Oregon shot 13 of 25 from 3 against UC Irvine on Sunday. That's not going to continue, first of all. Second of all, they run a lot of action around the rim with Peyton Pritchard getting low, and this is you want to watch from a basketball minutia perspective of what Peyton Pritchard does to get to the basket. It's what more point guards should do: get low and get your back arched and get to the rim. And we saw him carry Oregon on to the Final Four a couple of years ago, and he's even more experienced now. Kenny Wooten, even without Bobo, Kenny Wooten is so athletic around the basket. But at the same time, Virginia runs that pack line defense where you're limiting opponents' ability to get to the rim. So for that matter, if Oregon isn't able to shoot 40, 50% from 3 like they did against UC Irvine, I don't expect Wooten to be as effective around the basket at either side. I don't think they can match up with DeAndre Hunter, the lottery pick either, who was out for Virginia when they lost last year to UMBC. So I expect Virginia to roll and possibly cover that 8.5, minus 8.5 is the spread.
Dean Davis on the line right now, Eli Hershkovich. Make sure you follow him at Eli Hershkovich. Eli, real quick on Virginia, and you just mentioned it with Hunter. A lot of people haven't really seen him that much this season, being one of the most talented players Martin has had. The question, though, and you know how bad it is here in Chicago, who would you take at 3 or 4, depending on where the Bulls land? And I just want to know, how do you rate Hunter, since some people are really big on him and others are kind of like, eh.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's going to be a top 5 pick, but the guy can shoot. The guy can handle the basketball. Has the mid-range game as well, can take you down on the block, a good defensive big. We saw what happened when Duke and UVA matched up. Just the ridiculous block from Zion when DeAndre Hunter, who has a bit of a slower release, I would say that's his biggest flaw, is the slower release, especially when you come from the perimeter. But then again, you're not going to have a lot of forwards like Zion that could come from the free throw line or around the basket within a second, maybe even less than a second, and block that shot. When UVA lost to Duke at home, just shows you how athletic Zion Williamson is on the defensive end, one of the highest block rates in college basketball. But I think Hunter will be really effective in the NBA because he could stretch the floor. He is that modern four at the next level.
And look, getting back to the game, how do you think Admiral Schofield is going to react after basically sitting out the latter half of that game? Do you expect him to come back and have a good game versus Purdue?
Yeah, you basically read my mind, man. I think Schofield comes out and dominates in this game. You guys saw, and the country saw, how good he was against Gonzaga going back to non-conference play, hitting so many big threes. And Schofield said post-game that he wanted their center, Kyle Alexander, to play more, and that's why he himself said he didn't want to come back in the game. I don't believe that. As much as I like Rick Barnes and I thought he was going to get over the hump this year, which he still very well can, and get to the Final Four with an extremely talented Vols team, how do you not put your best player back in the game? Well, at least at the end of regulation. I know you could say his confidence was knocked. They had a shot to beat Iowa before overtime, and I know Tennessee won that game in overtime because of the dominance of Grant Williams, contributed to on 9 of their 12 overtime points. Just a freak down low, a physical specimen on the block and on the defensive end too. But I expect Schofield going back to the Purdue matchup to respond. Tennessee does give up a large chunk of threes. That's their biggest defensive issue, is giving up the perimeter game, which if Purdue controls the tempo, good luck. But Purdue also gives up a lot of threes. And Jordan Bone can stroke it from deep, their starting point guard, and it definitely needs to refine his turnover percentage going back to the Iowa game. You have, again, Schofield could hit it from 3. Grant Williams has stretched his game out this season to the perimeter. I expect Tennessee to win this game, and you've already seen the money come in on Tennessee. I think 80% of the money, or right around that, is on Tennessee so far, and the lines jump from -1 balls to Tennessee being favored by 1.5. I expect Tennessee to beat Purdue, the matchup that's going to be really fun to watch. I know most of your listeners probably don't know who Jordan Bone is, but Jordan Bone against Carson Edwards, because Edwards can heat you up from anywhere all over the floor in half court, in transition. So Bone's got to lock down, and he's been an underrated defender on this Tennessee team all year long, even though their defense has regressed overall. I expect the Vols to beat Purdue pretty handily. You want to talk about coaches that have failed to make deep runs. It's Matt Painter, even though Rick Barnes is up there too. I think the Vols get to the Elite Eight.
And look, let me ask you real quick about a team that I wanted to pick to win the tournament, but I wussed out.
Who you wussed out on?
I wussed out on Gonzaga. Gonzaga versus maybe the deepest team in the tournament in Florida State. How do you predict that coming down, Eli?
Yeah, I expect Gonzaga to not roll in this game, but cover the spread. And I guess if you want to say roll, winning by 8 or more, the line right now is at 7.5. But Gonzaga, their revenge factor, and this is more of a gambling term for me, but it's situational spots. When you think about covering in a bounce back spot and a revenge spot, and this one has a revenge spot written all over it. I know Phil Culver's father passed away for Florida State, so you could say that could benefit FSU, and I'm not taking that. I'm not taking that into any, not shooting him down and shooting down this FSU team because of that. I mean, that's an instance in its own for FSU and for what Kofor has to deal with. A stretch 4 means a lot to this FSU team. He's expected to miss this contest because of his father's passing. But back to the matchup, Gonzaga can shoot the 3 really well. And while Florida State does defend the 3, they don't shoot the 3 well at all. And Gonzaga has a really good interior defense with Brandon Clark and Rui Hachimura. Hachimura could be a top 5 pick, speaking of the NBA draft. And Brandon Clark is just a dominant defensive big. I expect Clark to be all over Kabengele of FSU when he comes in the game off the bench. Kabengele, arguably their best scorer, even though he's their 6th man, which is weird in itself from Leonard Hamilton. An FSU team that I know went to the Elite Eight last year. But I think Gonzaga's athleticism in transition, they're able to control the pace, even though FSU wants to push it too. I think Gonzaga's able to push the tempo. Zach Norvell, a Simeon grad from the Chicagoland area, is able to get hot from 3. He hasn't been dominant so far in the tournament, but when Gonzaga controls the tempo, that's when Norvell's at his best. And I expect Gonzaga to control the glass as well and dominate in transition.
Eli, who is the best player in this tournament besides Zion Williamson?
Well, you look from region to region, and obviously you have your really athletic specimens. You have your really dominant scorers beyond Zion Williamson left in the big dance. But to me, it's Cassius Winston of Michigan State. One of the best players in college basketball and one of the quietest superstars you'll find around this game. You go back to the Minnesota matchup. He does it when he needs to. He takes over when he needs to. Minnesota would cut Michigan State deficit from 17 to 9 in that second half. Winston goes on a personal 7-0 run. His ability to control the pace. Mentioned Gonzaga, what they do in transition. Cassius Winston controls the pace on it from an individual standpoint better than any player in this tournament. This LSU matchup is going to be difficult. They have a really good front court with Big B Williams and Nas Reed who can match up with MSU's. But from the sole standpoint of an explosive individual in this tournament that's left, and who beyond Zion is, to me, it's Cassius Winston for what he's able to do for this offense and on defense too, a really underrated defensive point guard. I did a story on this for the Action Network a couple weeks ago. How value Cassius Winston into the spread is Zion's worth 6 to 7 points to some people, which I don't think is off that much. We saw what Duke did without him, especially against Wake Forest at home, nearly losing that game. I think Winston's worth 3.5. Even though he's banged up with a knee tendonitis and with a toe injury, he's been dominant so far. And just wait and see for what he does against LSU.
All right, Eli, last one. Who do you have in your Final Four, and who's going to win it all, and why?
Okay, so I think Michigan State comes out of the East region. I expect them defensively to match up well with Duke, with Xavier Tillman on Williamson in the half court especially, and McQuaid on R.J. Barrett. And again, the Winston factor is very underrated to me for what people are giving Williamson credit for. Winston deserves at least half of that credit for what he means to Michigan State. In the West region, I got Texas Tech coming out of that region defensively. I think they take over in the Elite Eight against Gonzaga. In the South region, I got Tennessee. I know it survived advance in the first 2 rounds, and you got Purdue, potentially Virginia on deck in the Elite Eight. Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield, 2 of the best scorers in the country, 2 of the best tandems, or one of the best tandems in college basketball. I think Rick Barnes gets over the hump here. And I know I made the claim for Auburn everywhere, literally everywhere, for them to make the Final Four. But just you watch UNC, and I'm not taking UNC to win that region, but you watch the Tar Heels against their first 2 opponents, and you could say Auburn's a much tougher matchup, but they are, and they can still win that game. I'm not taking Auburn out to have a shot in that one, but UNC is plus 50 on the glass through their first 2 games. Regardless of who they played in Washington and Iona, and Iona is a really good mid-major, by the way, UNC's dominance on the glass, Auburn undersized. Even though Wiley's come back healthy, that team struggles to rebound the basketball. It's going to be tough for Auburn to win that game. I liked it more so when UNC was somewhat susceptible coming into the tournament on the glass, but if Auburn's able to control the tempo, it's a different story. I think UNC wins that game. I think Houston comes out of the Midwest region, though. That defense, I think you have 2 of the best defensive teams in the country going to the Final Four in Texas Tech and Houston. Their ball pressure is just phenomenal. What Corey Davis and Armani Brooks and Caleb Robinson can do from that perspective defensively, and they shoot the 3 ball really well too. This is a top 70 3-point scoring rate in the country, so when they're able to control the pace, they're really good at getting rebounded with Brady and Fabian White. And Calvin Sampson, I think, is able to lead a team back to the Final Four since his Oklahoma days. I got Michigan State winning it all, though. The Cassius Winston factor. You have one of the best front courts in the country with Xavier Tillman, Nick Ward, who's coming off the freaking bench, and Kenny Goins in the front court. And that McQuaid, too, is such a you want to talk about your typical Michigan State player. It's Matt McQuaid, his ability to space the floor, get it on transition with Winston, and also what it meant for that Michigan State team after Izzo went off against Bradley. I understand that people want to say, why would you go after a player like that? But Michigan State needed a kick in their mouth from their own coach after being down for much of that half against Bradley and tied in a chunk of the second half against the Braves. That moment to me really sparked a Michigan State run to win the title.
So you just didn't write the article about Houston and the money from the money rollover. That wasn't hypothetical. You took Houston, and you still rolling right now. Huh?
Yeah, no, in my bracket, see, I'll defend myself for a second. In my bracket, I have Auburn advancing to the Final Four. I also have a lot of bets on Houston from the beginning of the season and into the middle of it as well. So, yes, I'm all in on Houston on the money line rollover to at least make the Final Four. That Tennessee matchup is going to be good if they match up. But yeah, Houston is a very dangerous team the rest of the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you see right here superstar in Eli Hershkovich. All over the place. 670 Score TV as well. Eli, man, thank you for being down with us, and thank you for hopping on with us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good one, Eli.
You too.
And that was Eli Hershkovich.
It's Hershkovich.
Hershkovich. Yeah. I'm looking at the phonetic spelling. They had the O in there. So that's why I was like, oh, okay. All right. But hey, we just call him Eli.
Hershkovich.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of what both of you guys were saying.
Initially, I initially
we just called him Eli.
Well, I believe on the line I said Hershkovich.
Yeah.
But when he kept saying you missed the sh part when you were saying his name. You said Hershkovich is what you said. It's Hershkovich.
Hershkovich.
Yes.
Is it still a combination of the two or what?
No. Ken got it right.
Okay.
But he does it a lot. When he does it bad, it throws.
Oh, you gonna rub it? You gonna throw it on me?
Because when you were saying, I was going to tell you when you
huh?
said it, I was going to be like, no, it's Hershkovich.
Hershkovich.
And you were like, Hershkovich.
Maybe I'm just saying it too
And then he tries to keep saying their name. He'd be like, Eli Hershkovich. And then he'd be like, and also follow Eli Hershkovich. And it's like, no. Hershkovich. Hirsch. First say Hirsch. Like the school Hirsch. Hirsch. It's Herschch, right?
Let's call him Superstar.
Okay.
He is so old man Southside Chicago, man.
Well, Hersh. Yeah.
Hirsch. All right. Hey, like I said before, man, follow him on Twitter, because I ain't going to say the name.
No, I'll do it.
Eli Hershkovich.
No.
I just did it. I just did it right.
Hershkovich.
Eli, no.
Covich. Do this.
What?
Covich. Say Covich.
What?
Say Covich.
Covich.
No. Covich.
Oh, Covich.
Okay. Now say Hirsch.
Hershkovich.
There you go.
I thought that's what I was saying.
No. Stop telling yourself it's right. It's not, brother. It's not.
Oh, man. But you can find all his writings on Action Network and 670
Action
Score.
Network HQ.
Oh, HQ. And I just downloaded the app, too. Seems pretty cool. I don't want to get sucked into the gambling again, but woo-wee. Listen to Eli, you might make some money. All right, we'll come on back. Have more fun. D and Davis Show.
What's up, everybody? It's Cameron Smith from CBS 2 Chicago. You're listening to the D and Davis Show.
D and Davis Show right now. We have Jared Wyllys on the line. Follow all his writings in the Sport News, Forbes Sports, which he had a pretty good article on that we're definitely going to talk about in Chicago Mag. And also follow him at JWYLLYS. You get it, Jay Wyllys. Jared, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited because the baseball season is almost here.
Yes.
Yeah, and we were just sitting here talking a little bit at the beginning of the show about pitchers signing these contracts, and even though the pitchers are getting paid, if you kind of look at David Price's contract when he signed with the Red Sox, they're not getting paid what he was getting paid, where these other phenomenal everyday players have at least gotten past what A-Rod got when he signed with the Texas Rangers. Do you ever see another day, well, of course with the exploding contracts, but how close are we to seeing another pitcher getting a $200 million deal, and is the only thing that's holding them back perhaps is the age when they're getting close to free agency?
Yeah, I really think that's what it boils down to is the age thing. You're not going to see a pitcher get a contract that size unless they're getting to them at age 26, maybe 27, to throw that kind of a deal their way. And honestly, I don't think we're going to see hitters get those kind of contracts either unless they're the same age. I think a lot of what helped Harper and Machado get the deals that they did is the fact that they're just 26 years old. So I think the days of guys at age 30, 31 getting these big deals are over. It kind of stinks for them because a lot of them can't control the fact that they don't really hit free agency until they're almost 30 years old. So my hope is that something will change with service time and those kinds of things so that these guys can get paid earlier. But yeah, I think we've seen the end of that kind of contract for guys that are much older than like 26, maybe 27.
You have a pretty good article in Forbes Sports about Goldschmidt signing and talking about how his contract hurts tanking teams. And one of the things I want to talk to you about was Eloy's contract, because as a Sox fan, I'm not as happy as most Sox fans because I still think they blundered the Manny signing. And when I read your article, it infuriated me even more because it was like, this is your only chance. Can you sit there and explain how teams that are sitting there trying to use tanking and then get into the free agent market to fill in the holes aren't going to have that chance due to the fact that a lot of these teams are signing their players up early?
Yes, that is the problem. That is a scary thing if you're in a position like the White Sox are in right now, because their ability to go out and add via free agency is looking like it is just diminishing before they even get a chance to get to that point. Because when you look back at the last few years of World Series teams, a lot of them build from within, but they also include signing that big-name free agent. All you have to do is look across town and look at what the Cubs did with John Lester and a couple other guys along the way. A big part of what built that World Series team was free agency. And so it does put the White Sox in a hard spot where what happens when, okay, now you've got Eloy on the Major League roster. Next year you have Kopech back. You've got these pieces, but what happens when you can't add via free agency and you can't bring in somebody that's really going to push you over the edge? I thought Machado was going to be that guy. I'm right there with a lot of Chicago and just, kind of feeling disappointed about that because it seemed like they were really in on him. And so it's definitely put them in a scary position where you might have to get creative about how you build your Major League roster and shift the way that you've been operating so far.
Jared, real quick before D jumps in, out of all the contracts that have been signed in the last month and a half, so which one have you disliked the most?
That's a good question because I haven't had a huge issue with a lot of them. I do kind of wonder about this DeGrom extension, just because of his age. I get why the Mets, it'd be really hard for them to justify not extending him, but I think it's 5 years and he's 31, 32. Those last couple of years you're paying for decreased production, and when you're in the Mets, what else have you done as a team to make sure that you're competitive? Because otherwise, what's the point? So you extended DeGrom, great, but what have you put around him so that you can compete with the Phillies and the Nationals and the Braves? So I think for me, it's the DeGrom one, just because they've got more to do besides just extending him.
D and Davis show on the line with us right now. Jared Wyllys, recording right here at 670 Score. Make sure you follow Jared on Twitter at JWyllys. Sticking with the Cubs and kind of with contracts, Hendricks was just re-up today. Your thoughts on that extension?
I think that's a great move on their part. That's been the one thing this offseason that's really felt like you're watching these teams around the league extending their key players, and the Cubs have been so quiet. So in a lot of ways, it's a relief to see that they've made this step with Hendricks. I think he's the kind of guy that you can build your rotation around as the rotation shifts in the next couple of years. With John Lester's contract expiring, and as the rotation is going to change a little, it's good to have Hendricks there for the long term. So I really like what they did with him.
And as far as contract, one guy we don't know who's going to get a contract extension is Joe Madden. So is this like a win or bust World Series or go home Joe season?
I don't think they've given us any reason to think otherwise. So it sure feels that way. Either you win or you're done. And I don't know if win means you've got to win a World Series or you're fired. Mm-hmm. But if he can win the division again and make a deep postseason run, maybe they look at extending him. But I honestly believe that when he came in, he was the absolutely right guy for the Cubs as they were in 2015, 2016, where they were young, inexperienced, and they needed somebody to help them stay loose with the pressure of World Series drought and all of that on their shoulders. But the reality is, now several years removed from that, it's not the same clubhouse anymore, because even though a lot of the guys are the same, they've matured, they've had a lot more experiences. They don't need somebody like Joe Madden anymore. I don't think it's that Joe Madden's a bad manager. I think he's just not the right fit the way he was a few years ago. So I could see them making a move toward someone else after this season, really, unless he's very successful.
And he had the Cubs winning going to the playoffs last year, but some of their key players just didn't have it. Past couple of seasons, everybody thought, with the younger guys, we're seeing they hit a ceiling. Who is on the main roster that you're looking at right now? It's like, you know what? They need that dude to have a big season in order for them to go further in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the guys that everyone has their eye on are like Chris Bryant. But the one that, to me, I've mentioned him before, is Wilson Contreras. because he's shown in the past that he has the potential to single-handedly carry that offense. But then he also, like we saw last season in the second half, he just disappeared. But when you have a catcher who can provide the kind of offensive production like he has shown that he can, that's a huge difference maker. So for me, that kind of under-the-radar guy in the lineup is going to be Contreras. And so I'll be really anxious to see what he looks like as this season progresses.
Jared, you mentioned that you looked at Joe Madden when he came in being someone that can ease the players up and relax them, and it makes me think a little bit about Terry Francona with the Red Sox and then how they brought in Bobby Valentine. Or do you see that the Cubs are going to bring in some type of hard-edge, Buck Showalter type of guy next season to do the old flip of easy coach, hard coach?
No circus clowns.
Yeah, I think the days are right. Even we've already seen it. The days of the circus clowns, the magicians, all that kind of stuff. It's over. But I wonder if more their next manager won't necessarily be somebody who's like a hard ass, but somebody who embraces the analytics in a way that Joe Madden doesn't quite at this stage in his life, or somebody who is going to run the clubhouse in a way that is a little bit more structured, disciplined. Because as we've seen in some of the stories that have come out this week, it sounds like things are a little too loose in the Cubs clubhouse, and guys who didn't know what time they were supposed to be at the ballpark for certain things, or just the uncertainty about whether or not you're going to be in the lineup from one day to the next. So my thinking is they may go somebody who's a little bit younger, and maybe someone in the vein of like what we've seen the Yankees and Red Sox do. It's like Alex Cora, Aaron Boone, someone like that, who really embraces the analytics and very forward-thinking in that way, and is just able to keep the clubhouse a little more structured.
Joe Girardi?
He seems like a possibility. I know he's a popular choice. My question would be, is he different enough from Joe Madden as far as like strategy and those kinds of things, as your in-game strategy with somebody like Girardi? I wouldn't hate the choice, but I do wonder if he would really be their first guy to go to.
Dean Davis on the line right now, baseball writer Jared Wyllys. Jared, sticking with the Cubs, let me ask you this. I'm a big proponent in Theo and Jed. I trust, and I'm a Sox fan. But and I've caped for them when it came to the signing of Darvish. But when you pointed out, I've seen some of your articles as far as Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell still being out there. When you look at the signing of last year and Chatwood and Morrow, and that money being allotted to them last season, was it even more of a blunder when you look at the fact that this quality starter and closer are still out on the market, and that Theo and Jed really jumped the shark last season when they had money, and now this season they're hamstrung by the budget?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Did they jump the shark? I like that, because that's, in some sense, you could also say it's what put them out of the Bryce Harper market, because they committed that money. I think Chatwood is the biggest one that they wish they could have that one back, because in the same offseason that you signed Darvish, you also signed Chatwood. So you committed a ton of money to two starting pitchers, and you didn't really get much of anything from either of them. And so, yeah, maybe they could be in on Keuchel, or what I would love to see them do is be making a run at Craig Kimbrell right now, because who's your closer for the Cubs? I know that technically it's Brandon Morrow, but how many healthy innings can you count on him for? And do we want Strop as the fill-in starter when he's been so good in the eighth inning for so many years? So I don't like the fact that they're leaving that bullpen vulnerable when you have somebody like Kimbrell available. I know what his asking price has been, and it's high. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Maybe they took themselves out of that race a year ago.
With sticking with the closer, do you see that even though he had some bumps last year towards the end of the season, but coming from spring training, that maybe in the long run that C.J. Edwards is going to get that job and he definitely has the stuff, or is it going to be a situation with Strop? Who do you look at as probably being the closer if the Cubs aren't going to go out and spend any money for the majority of the year?
I mean, stuff-wise, there's nobody better than Edwards. But when he gets wild, when it starts to get away from him, so far he has trouble kind of getting it back, reining it in. I think if he can get a handle on that, not only could he be the Cubs' best closer, he could be one of the best closers in baseball, period. So I would love to see them keep giving him a chance. I don't want them to quit on Edwards at the very, for the ninth inning, because I think the potential there is just huge. I like some of what we've seen this offseason this spring training, where he's trying some different things. He's got the hesitation move that kind of mimics what Kenley Jansen does. He's throwing some change-ups in situations where he wasn't before. And so I love the idea of sticking with him at least as a possibility and see how he does, because, again, he could solve this problem himself very easily.
Last one from the NL for me, NL Central. This is definitely the toughest division, and it kind of harkens back to the earlier discussion about jumping the shark. When you look at the fact that Paul Goldschmidt just got signed to this extension and he is going to be a Cardinal, and the moves that the Cardinals have made, and then you look at the fact that, for all we know, Craig Kimbrell can end up with Milwaukee. Who do you think is going to win this division? And is that window, and I know it's not closed for the Cubs, but when I was just thinking about it today, with the fact in the arms race, these two teams in their division they've gripped up pretty well. Does it seem like the window is closing? I know it's closing quicker, but it's coming right around the corner.
Yeah, this season definitely feels like I don't want to say make or break necessarily, but this is a season where things can shift in one direction or another. What's the rest of this quote-unquote contention window going to look like? I think we're going to learn a lot based on how this season turns out, because you're right that the window has gotten closed a little bit, just given some of the Cubs issues, but also given what the Brewers have done to get better, what the Cardinals have done to get better. So as far as who wins the division, ask me 3 days in a row and I might give you three different answers. Because I honestly think these three teams they're going to come down to the wire, barring, of course, something just going horribly wrong. Because each team has its question marks, but each team is just that good that they're going to go at it all year long, and I think we should all just buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Jared, let's go head over to the South Side. Ken and I are White Sox fans. Not the best spring training record. I don't think you really dive deep that much into the spring training. But what were some of the bright spots you think for the Southsiders in spring training?
I think one of the big things that I've liked is the fact that Yoan Moncada he's shown a little more aggressiveness. Because as we all saw last year, especially where he would just get burned on so many called third strikes. Because I think one of his better strengths that also works to his disadvantage. He's got such a great eye for the strike zone that he's taking pitches that are technically balls, but they don't get called that way all the time. Mm-hmm. I heard Rick Renteria say it a lot last year. And so as an answer to that, to help cut down on some of those strikeouts, be a little more aggressive. Go after some of those first, second pitches so that you don't put yourself in a spot where you're down 2 strikes. So if he can continue to do that kind of thing, that's very, very exciting, because for as pumped as we all are about seeing what Eloy Jimenez looks like, I'm such a Moncada believer. I feel like that guy could be like Robinson Cano, but better. And so the athleticism, how he can hit 40 home runs. He's fast. I love everything about the potential with that guy, and I'm just anxious to see if he can really start to make it happen.
Wait, Jared, you did tell me, man, Machado was signing with the Sox, didn't you?
I was so convinced. Yes, okay. Yeah, all signs were pointing that direction. I will eat that crow. I will own that.
Hey, I was right there with you to the end, Jared. So what?
Up until the day the Padres announced it, I was like, it's gonna happen.
The bad part, I was too.
We all were. So what about Moncada's infield mate, Tim Anderson? You still believe in him?
Yes. Well, I was actually just having a conversation with a friend about Tim Anderson today. He very quietly had a 2020 season last year, mm-hmm. and not a lot of people noticed. And so Tim Anderson's another guy who, with another year under his belt, a little more growth development, I'm excited to see what this guy can do, because he's got a lot more pop in his bat than I think people realize. So that that infield duo of Anderson and Moncada, that's pretty exciting. There's a ton of talent there. Abreu is just going to do what he always does. But those two guys are gonna be fun to watch this year. You think Abreu's going to be on the south side for the entire season, though? You think you're possibly going to move him eventually? That's something I've got to admit I'm in a little bit of denial about, because I know that there's a real possibility they may look to trade him. I mean, he was being rumored last year, and that there are a lot of teams that would just be salivating to get somebody like Abreu for a playoff push. I think he brings tremendous value to their clubhouse in terms of his presence, his leadership. I think some of these young guys learn a lot from watching how he does what he does. Moncada in particular. And so it would be a loss in terms of their clubhouse to see him go. But I also understand that teams can't make decisions just based on that. And so there is a very real possibility that they part with him this year.
All right, last one, Jared. Last week, I got up in the morning with my lazy self to do some exercising. And as I got up, and it was funny because so many people were complaining about the MLB season opening up in Japan, I saw that the alert was that this was going to be Ichiro's last game. And my eyes watered a little bit because he was one of the last players that debuted before my father passed away. What did it mean to you, and what does Ichiro's career mean to you now that it's come to an end?
Man, I was right there with you, and I'm getting a little choked up right now thinking about it. I was also at the gym trying to, stay as fit as I can, and the timing worked out that I was on the treadmill when he was taking his last at bat, and I had to just stop because I didn't want anything to distract me from what I was seeing happen. Because, just the magnitude of his career. I hope that now that he's retired, we get the opportunity to really reflect on it and appreciate just how good he was. But yeah, that was an emotional moment for me too. It was kind of weird. I felt a little silly because I was standing next to a treadmill at Lifetime Fitness with tears in my eyes, staring at my phone. But that's just the way life is sometimes, I think.
Would we all say that he's the greatest hitter of all time?
Oh, that's a lot to say. Hitter of all time. Ted Williams may be the greatest hitter of all time.
Man,
bro. The Splendid Splinter is the greatest hitter of all time.
If Ichiro had played his entire season in MLB, career, I'm saying.
Again, if Ted Williams never went to World War II.
Oh, that's true. I give you that one.
And he killed people in a plane.
But Ichiro was that dude. Ichiro was that dude.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Ted Williams.
Yeah, I think when you make your top 5 list, Ichiro's on that easily.
There you go. All right, Jared, hey, man, thanks for hopping on with us tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
Always, man.
Thanks for having me. I love doing it.
All right. And that was Jared Wyllys, baseball writer of Sporting News, Forbes Sports, and Chicago Mag. You can follow Jared on Twitter at JWyllys. That's WYLLYS. Definitely Ichiro is on the Mount Rushmore. Give me your Mount Rushmore hitters then, Ken.
Tony Gwynn.
Okay. He's the number. No, order?
Number 1 is Ted Williams.
Okay,
not even,
all right, cool.
Ted Williams. Tell me who's hit 400. Who's come close to it?
Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, Ichiro. And again, we can say when he was younger, but definitely Ted Williams is the greatest hitter of all time.
Okay, all right. So you got 2.
Tony Gwynn. He lasted so long now, it's taken away from it, but I would say Albert Pujols. You got to remember where Albert Pujols' numbers were at the till 2015 is when that contract contract was always bad, but his diminishing returns with the Angels now, 2015 was the year it started going down because that's the thing. He played a long time. I haven't got to the end. I'll say honorable mention Wade Boggs, but I'm not going to put him in my top 5. I've also Frank Thomas, but because we're always talking about the first 7 years. Babe Ruth.
That's a big-ass Mount Rushmore you got there.
No, but those are my honorable mentions. I just got to my third person in Babe Ruth. No, yeah, Tony. I said Tony.
Tony Gwynn.
No, I got 4, right? I got Babe Ruth, Tony Gwynn, Ichiro, and Ted Williams.
Ted Williams, okay.
And then I got just one more, Honus Wagner. Listen, see his memes, man. Honus Wagner was a bad Ty Cobb because it was an alleged murder, which we now know he didn't murder, but still had hate and rage in his heart.
I would definitely side with your first two, Tony Gwynn and Ted Williams. I'm going to put Ichiro up there. And
that's 3. I did those 3.
Yeah, no, and I got one different than you, though.
Okay.
Just because of the record, I would throw Mr. Gambling himself, Pete Rose.
No.
Why not?
Too slappy.
Hey, man, you get on base, don't you? Ain't that the whole? That's the whole.
Barry?
What's his?
Nah.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
I think he's overall probably the greatest of all time.
Barry.
You put Barry?
Yeah, Barry. Put Barry in there.
Juice or no juice?
Both.
Don't matter.
There
Both.
you go.
He take 2 spots on the Mount Rushmore.
I think he's probably the greatest baseball player I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
I'm talking about just pure hitting, getting
Have
on
you
base.
heard heard stories of him trying to explain to people about hitting? Like he is so like Chris Bryant. The way he explains hitting is entertaining and informative. That's like times 10 on how Barry is on how he deciphers hitting.
I don't care if you throw 100 miles an hour. I don't care if you throw 120 miles an hour. There's a catcher behind home plate, and that catcher catches that ball every time with a glove. Only thing I did was change the object from glove to a bat, and all I gotta do is catch it.
And where was your sweet spot right here then in this bat?
I was always right here. This has to become an extension to my arm. If this doesn't become an extension to me, if we can't become one, then there's a problem. It's like golf, when you get that little driver in your hand, or you get a little sand wedge, and I ain't no golfer, and you just take this nice easy swing and you just chip it, then all of a sudden you get that driver in your hand, all of a sudden you want to do all this, and everything breaks down.
That's a problem.
It's a problem. All I did was not break down the problem.
What are your 3 keys of hitting? 3 keys. If you have to go 3 keys, where are they hitting?
Keeping your hands up is very important. Staying short and balanced. Your hands up, short and balanced. That's what keeps everything straight.
Tony, you said they had a really close relationship.
They did.
Ted Williams and Tony Gwynn, and the stories that you hear about how the difference in the back crack and what it really means and stuff like that. Yeah. So I mean, that's the great thing about baseball. I'm really getting amped about this baseball season, just because.
Eloy!
Tony's is with his Eloy screen.
I got a quick Barry Bonds question for y'all over here.
Okay.
That stretch where he was juicing, going at it, was that maybe the most dominant stretch you've seen
in sports
in baseball history?
It's not even a question.
Baseball is no question.
Dude, he got a half a pitch to hit every game. And broke the home run record.
I've never seen anything like that.
They used to walk. No, but just
I never seen somebody get walked with bases loaded.
Hey, look. This is the crazy part.
I never seen it before.
We know that no one was grooving them balls. Matter of fact, speaking of grooving balls to the A's, could you have grooved Ichiro one? That's all I'm asking. Right. Just one, bruh.
In Japan.
Just about to say you're in Japan. Could you groove him one for me?
Did he strike out the last one?
Don't bring it up.
Yeah, he did.
Did you see if you did the morph between young Ichiro getting in the league and old Ichiro, be like, damn, Ichiro, you've been going through some stuff, right? But like,
I was up early that morning working out. I saw his first 2 at bats. I didn't see the last one. I saw the first 2 at bats. But no, Barry Bonds to me is the greatest baseball player of all time. It doesn't come close, at least with these eyes I've seen. I've never seen anything like it.
Wait. If we're saying pre-steroids. Willie Mays is the greatest baseball player of all time. Let's be honest. I'm saying pre-steroids.
Barry Bonds almost won them a World Series. I don't see that stuff.
I'm just saying. If we're saying pre-steroid, because even you're talking about Willie Mays was playing center field too. That's more important than the corner outfielder.
Well, I think
and Barry
we can all agree. Barry juiced,
but
the ultimate baseball player ever.
The greatest.
Yeah.
I'm happy I saw it.
But you saw Barry do so much other stuff too on the field. I mean, he was stealing.
What you think that you don't think Willie didn't steal base? You don't think?
No, he
Willie
did.
Stole bases?
I'm just saying with my eyes. Yeah, at least with my eyes.
The thing about baseball, it's a long history. When we got stats.
It is.
So that means if we're saying before, we know who has always been known as the greatest baseball player in modern times before the steroid era was Willie Mays. Not Mets Willie Mays.
Not Hannes Wagner, though.
No.
Listen, he was a bad MFer. Bad MFer. Known to pull up in a Lex bubble and just get out and let the music.
Oh, man, it's Hagner coming.
Oh, Honus out there doing the horny. He's had his move called the horny.
Oh,
He'd get out there and put up one leg up and be like, yeah, Honus. And he did some freaky stuff, man.
Were the Quakers upset in Pittsburgh when he was
very upset. Very, very, very
shaking
upset.
their fist. Mm-hmm.
If you saw what Hornets could do with one of those pipe what's the name? Conductor caps that the Pittsburgh used to have. Really freaky and nasty, man, to say the least. All right. Let's come back and close out our little MLB thoughts. How about that? You guys want to talk about
no doubt.
All right. The Davis Show.
Yo, what up? It's your man Jay Illa, official Chicago Bears DJ, and you are listening to the D and Davis Show. Turn it up.
D and Davis Show, we are back. Hey, shout out to Jared Wyllys hopping on with us, talking some baseball.
Maybe he was a little under the weather. If you are, I hope you feel better.
Yeah. But Jared came in, man, gave us some good baseball thoughts. And we have our own baseball thoughts. One thing I did want to get your thoughts on, we kind of touched on it, I don't know, a little bit, I think it was doing the show about Hendricks and his extension. But it was something else I wanted to
Should have got a little bit more coin, Kyle. Because you're going to be, they looking at you as being their ace. They have the money. They have.
Dude, they got the money. They got long money.
Put another 10 on that. All right?
Dudes are scared, man.
But do they have to?
Dudes are scared.
You're right, but dude.
They don't have to.
Think about it like this. If anybody can come back, let's just say if he has an arm issue, he doesn't use velocity anyway. Like he's a picker.
He's like a
known for tinkering crazy anyway. He'd probably figure it out.
Man,
I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm not saying he shouldn't have signed a deal.
The superstars are scared and they're re-upping. So guys that haven't been considered superstars, you know that they're scared.
I'm not knocking it, but dude, he got a snail deal. He got a short snail. You got to get a long snail.
He got 4 years. Ryan, how can you look at how old is
that's not, and you know how we feel about this. That's
29.
That's not Levine money, Tony. That's not a Levine. You got you a Levine. You doing decent. That's not even a Levine.
But with a pitcher like him, we look at his style and we can see the longevity, the possible longevity with him. He's 29 years old. He has a 4-year deal, possible 5 with an option. The 5th is the option, possibly.
Or it's vested.
No, it's vested. Yeah, it's vested. It's vested. So, I mean, is he going to get another deal like this? Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, not like
but
this.
I'm kind of with Tony,
Especially
man.
if his velocity dips even lower.
Even lower than what it
coming
is.
in the high 80s.
Right. But I'm kind of with Tony on this one. I mean, guys are seeing it. It's like, man, they're not giving this cash out. Yo, boss man, how much you got?
And that's soft.
I sign that.
To me, that's so soft. It's like you guys had the most powerful union
Tony Clark.
In sports.
It's not that no more.
And all you guys are running scared right now because the owners are lying about the money that they have. And you know that they're lying.
Yeah.
And you guys are running off scared. And again, I'm not in that situation, so I can't tell you what a man needs to do with his money or anything like that. Whatever. If you feel like that's enough money for you
should.
Go ahead and do it.
But I'm going to diss it.
Right. but yeah, that's just it's baseball has money. You know they have money. Go get your money.
My problem is his leverage. All right, we talked about this. We talked about this up at the office after the show. Mm-hmm. You got Lester coming off the books. You got Zobrist coming off the books.
Hamels.
I was about to say you got just a $20 million thrown out there.
Yeah.
You're their picture. You're their future pitcher. You can get 10 more. You could have got 57 on that bad boy.
But that means he probably wouldn't have to. He probably would have to hold out a little bit longer. And I think I'm guessing that these guys
it's not a hold out.
They're not really.
Wait. He has to wait.
They wait. Exactly.
But he has. But
they're not trusting themselves.
But this is the thing too. Still to know, you don't have to wait to hit free agency. You just have to wait and get just a tag close. And by a tag close, I mean just even half of the season. Because we've seen with everyone signing, guess where, right before this happened, I don't know what year he comes out, but let's just still look at free agent pitchers in the next 3 to 4 years. You know who's not going to be coming out? Chris Sale, DeGrom. All right,
is Strasburg locked up for the next 4 years?
Yeah, Strasburg has got 2 more
years,
probably 2 more seasons.
That sounds about right.
Listen, they're probably going to give Scherzer some more cash. Right, Scherzer's so a guy like Kyle Hendricks, who is on a bigger stage, being in the Chicago Cubs, people seen in the World Series, so people know his name. He has a vaster opportunity to make money off this because everyone's gone. People know you're not a flamethrower, so they know okay, you'll be there. We want people that can just eat innings in the first place and stay healthy. And then, again, guys, I'm not talking about $90 million. I just said another 10. Like, that's even if you look at the duration of the deal, I'm basically saying $2.5 million more per season. That's not a lot of money.
He's not betting on himself.
That's not a lot of money. I mean, so, and again, that's easy for me to say it because, as you guys are pointing out, it's his money.
It's his money.
It's his health. All right, but I like you, Kyle. I just wanted you to get another 10 for the babies. All right, that's all I'm saying. Speaking of pitching, one thing that's kind of aggravated me, looking through a few articles. I know Carlos Rodon, it should be the opening day pitcher. But I feel like after last year, and I know he was hot and he kind of ended, I wouldn't have minded if it was Ronaldo Lopez. But looking at some things, and I wonder, when they made the trade, it was like where Lopez wasn't an ace. This was the Adam Eden deal with the Nationals. And they had Lucas Giolito also.
Yeah.
Looking at how he's played, I'm not going to say he's an ace, but I can see him being a strong number 2. And it makes me
Lopez or Rodon you talking about?
Lopez.
Okay.
Look, Rodon, he could be an ace if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But again, we're talking about staying healthy. And even last year, we know that slider can be crazy. But even last year, he still went through ups and downs. And we're talking about like his third in the MLB season now. He wasn't somebody that was young. He was a college baseball player also. So they're just looking at as far as the White Sox in that rotation, it's just one of those things. And of course, from them building with pitching. And look, I hate to say this, man. Just looking at it, and I don't know if it's something that's going on as far as with the training or whatever, it wouldn't shock me. And I'm not trying to put bad mojo out there.
Don't put no bad juju on nobody.
I'm putting bad juju, not on purpose. Man, it wouldn't shock me if something happens to Dylan Cease this year.
Oh, come on, man. Really?
They're going to be like,
really?
Man, 3 Tommy Johns. Ding, 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 right? Like,
get him now, huh?
Yeah, just as
the
far
White Sox
as
have had a ton of bad
Kopech,
luck.
Dunning,
a lot of
it wouldn't surprise me if you sit there with. I'm just wondering, and again, these are players that you've brought in out from other systems, but it wouldn't just reading some baseball stuff today. No one said that. It just crept into the back of my mind as far as what's been going on for the White Sox and in their rebuild, going heavier on pitching than a lot of these other teams have done when the rebuild going with more everyday players. That's like, it wouldn't shock me. And I can hear Kenny and them trying to hold it off. Be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna see him just to send him to Dr. Andrews just to talk a little bit. And then a month later, yeah, we shutting his ass down.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Bad White Sox karma.
You definitely having Kopech out and then turn around and have that would be crazy.
And Dunning.
Yeah, you're right. And Dunning as well. But, the one pitcher I'm looking forward to kind of just seeing what he's going to bring to the team, and I don't think we expect that much from this season. I want to see what Nova brings to the team as kind of like a third or fourth starter. Because as many White Sox fans, I'm not high on Lucas. Don't know what you're going to do give him anyway. I would hope that Rodon stays healthy throughout the season. Lopez is your bright spot. But I want to see what Nova brings. Coming over as a veteran. I think he came from Pittsburgh. He was in Pittsburgh, played for the Pirates. I want to see what he brings to the table. I want to see what he does. If they can at least have a stable 4, like I said before, I'm not expecting to make the playoffs, not by a long shot. But I do want to see some growth within their pitching staff. So then when you do have these younger guys finally get infused within the system, within the major on the roster, probably next season, maybe towards the end of the season when they're out of it completely, kind of see exactly what they got going. So I'm hopeful for the starting rotation for the White Sox. Just hopeful, not like, oh yeah, we got one. I'm just hopeful right now.
Well, that's your best case. What do you think is the realistic play out of the Sox rotation specifically?
Lopez is going to be the dude for the rotation. I don't know about Lucas, man. I'm not saying anything about to move him or anything like that, but I'm not.
What you gonna move him for?
I know exactly. What you gonna do? Sit him down?
6.14 ERA over here.
You gonna sit him back down? I guess I don't know. And I just want.
Does he have contract control?
Does he? I don't know. I just want to see Rodon make it through the season. I just want to see him stay healthy. That'll be a plus for him.
He's been a horse.
Yeah, I just want to see him make it through the entire season healthy. He should be good. Nova, see if he can kind of bring you a stability right there at the back end of the rotation, and see a Lopez does even better than what he had last year. That's what I want to see.
I'm interested in seeing the White Sox lineup because you're looking at the fact that you got John Jay at the top, even though he's kind of hurt right now. He's not available. Looking at the fact you have him. You're going to sit there and have Yonder flipping with Abreu as far as DH and with the first base. And then you add in the fact that Eloy is going to be covering them, and then lower in your batting lineup, you're going to sit there and see how well he plays at Tim Anderson, maybe close to flipping it. Maybe he's ninth and you have him, and
not
then
opposed to that at all.
You go to John Jay. And you got two guys, on the bases right there starting off, when you flip it. So I'm interested in that. And on the north side, man, listen, I'm a Sox guy, man. I really don't want the Cubs' chance to be over. And that's the fear that I have.
Been saying it for about 2 seasons.
That you sit there and you look at what's going on, and it's they're going to get a lot of L's in that division now that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And let's not even talk about the division. The National League is stronger than the American League. The American League has way more teams that are rebuilding right now and tanking.
Dude, the AL Central.
I was saying, just look at the AL Central.
Stink.
Cleveland's not even trying.
Nope.
And night and day between the AL and NL Central.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like Chris Bryant is going to be healthy, so you don't have to worry about that. It's more of
you need more wood than that.
Yeah, it's Contreras, how he plays. I hope, and I know this is going to sound bad. I'm hoping this for the Cubs, not necessarily for him, even though I know with abuse, it could be beneficial to have some light. I feel more sorry for the victim than Addison Russell. I hope they get something out of him because they're going to look. Is Javi going to be the same player as he was last year? I mean, you may have, and it may not be terrible regression, but it just may be a little bit of regression coming from how well he played last season.
So wait a minute. So you don't have no win in the division? Sounds like to me.
I don't know. With that division, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, man. First of all, if Milwaukee gets closed, Milwaukee,
they're probably going to sign. Is Cooper?
Kimbrel.
I'm sorry.
Kimbrel.
Kimbrel. Yes, Kimbrel.
That's what I'm saying. So, and
they're probably going to sign.
And that would be. I'm a Sox. That would infuriate me, to be honest with you. Tom Ricketts, open your pocketbook up, buddy. All right, just drop that and then get the rest from Marquee later. I know this year, but you can't just be slapping Theo and Jed on the hand like you messed up the money. We get it, but do you want to win another World Series right now when you still have the chance to win a World Series? Because it's only going to get worse with spending money. I know you're going to have money coming off the books. We talked about that. You're going to have money coming off the books, but in all fairness, the players that you're going to have to spend that money on are going to cost more than the players right now because, one, you spent a lot of your money outside of Hayward on pitching. You're going to have to spend your money on pitching plus some everyday holes that you have now that you didn't expect to have now. And the everyday players was going to really catch you, depending on if they have a close enough chance and they go for an ace necessarily. And we know that farm system necessarily isn't what it used to be, and they may have to sit here and trade for somebody, and that's really going to deplete anything that they have right there. So that's just me looking at the two teams on the north and the south side.
If they ever get to the point when you're starting to hear that the Cubs are sellers, I've been saying it for about past 2 years.
So you've been talking outside your neck?
No.
The window hasn't been closed.
No. What I've been saying is you hope your young players stay there because one thing in baseball, the window closed. It shuts fast. Because once you think it's there, it's like, oh, man, we good for the next couple of seasons. It's like, nah, buddy. Your young stars, they didn't perform. They didn't do that last year. And you hope that they come back. So right now, you're hoping that, man, we hope we get something from, who knows what happened, but Haywood, you hope Chris Bryant comes back. You hope Contreras does this thing.
Haywood ain't giving y'all nothing extra special.
You hope Bryant stays healthy. You hope you Darvish, which I did not like that sign at all when they first did it. You hope he gets something out of it. I mean, you hope he gives you something. I'm not saying that it's closed, not by any stretch of imagination. What I'm saying is when you get to the point where your younger guys aren't at the level they once were, and it's like, damn, they peaked way too early, and it hasn't been an ascension on that rise. And Ken just brought it up right here. Man, you start hearing them talking about possibly moving people and trying to fill in voids like that, you're done.
Yeah, I think it's really important for this team and their young players because that's all the chips are all in on these young players developing. And we talked about Carlos Rodon for the Sox. I'm looking at the selection right after that draft in Kyle Schwarber. Is he that guy that's going to become that hitter that they were talking about? Because if he isn't the guy, he's probably going to bring you the most trade value out of everybody unless you're going to trade away Chris Bryant. So he's a guy I'm looking at with that big spring that he had. Can he carry that over into the regular season? And Ken, I completely agree. Is Javi going to be another type of front runner in the NL? Or are we going back to 270 and swinging all over the place?
Good point. I was actually talking to a coworker, and this was when we was a few weeks ago when I believe Harper got signed. Maybe it was around Trout. And he's an avid baseball fan. He's from Texas. He's a huge Rangers fan, but he loves baseball. And I asked, like, so what do you think? What do you think the Cubs should do with Bryant? Do you think it's going to make it to free agency? Do you think they're going to extend him? What? He's like, man, I'd trade him. I'm like, what? He's like, dude, they're not like. He doesn't believe their window was still open. He's like, I think they're done. He said, I would actually move him because of what you just said, Ryan. He's the one guy who can get you a lot back, replenish your farm system. And then you can and then you can actively say, yes, okay, Theo, I'm out. Because
Theo's out.
Theo's out. Because,
he was talking about Jed's running this.
And, he only sticks around for 10 years. He was like, dude, I don't think they're that good anymore. I mean, not that good, but he said, I don't believe they're going to win a championship. He said, I will move them. What do y'all think?
I'm a branch Ricky, get him out early rather than late. But my only thing is, that's interesting. You know, that was me and Jonathan Taves.
He said he doesn't like his stance. He's been injured a lot lately.
Yeah. I mean,
last 2 years.
The thing is, man, listen. If he's playing well, we also look at if he's playing well. Not to say he still wouldn't get a good haul just off of what he's been. It's interesting, but there's still a hefty chance the Cubs could be in playoff contention.
Oh yeah, it's probably definitely. And it's
definitely. And this is the thing. You can bank on the fact that it seems like that this front office can pick talent. So even if they did rob someone else's farm system with the Chris Bryant deal, chances are they would probably really hit on the guys that they would be robbing, but the team that they would be robbing. But man, you still have a window, and that window right now could be a year and a half. And to think that even if the Cubs only got out of this with one World Series, we at least thought they would have been to two in this time frame. I think that's the thing that kind of if they won,
Ken, you know that's baseball.
No, I'm not.
Man.
I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, that's not what I mean. That's not. It's baseball, but I'm still with how much talent was on this team. I'm still talking about only winning one. I think Cubs fans and the nation still expected them in this window to make two World Series. They could have won one and lost one.
2 NLC championships,
three straight.
Three straight. I'm sorry.
And I'm not taking it for granted.
And that's something that you look at as like, damn, they had a run.
I think it was last season going out as early as they did. I think that's what, if they got to the NLCS again, because the previous 2 years you felt that wasn't quite as good as that 16 team. Maybe next year. And then it was the year after, it's like, maybe next year. And then it's like, whoa, we're regressing. Yep. We're not getting better.
And on top of that, now you have a lame duck manager who, as we just
lame duck, he out. You don't even know. When you asked him that, it's like, dude, you ain't got to ask nobody about Joe. Joe Madden would have a contract if he wasn't a lame duck man. He's gone.
Even with that, now you have a manager who knows he's basically out the door. Open up a restaurant in Wrigleyville, but he knows he's out the door.
He doesn't have to buy a drink in Chicago ever again.
Yeah, how can they bring back Joe if they can't afford players? How are you going to afford Joe Madden as manager?
That's a good point.
They got what they got out of him. I like Joe Madden. I found him entertaining. But if they feel like he isn't the right guy to head the top of this team, you got to do what you got to do, and they basically know that. Yeah. I wonder how much you can actually put on Joe, and how much was it that it was too much too early for these players. And it's the thing is this too. I was thinking about this yesterday. I remember one of the Houston Astros players, I believe, making a comment about not having a World Series hangover, and it seemed like it was pointing towards the Cubs. A Houston Astros World Series is not a Chicago Cubs World Series. Like the type of stardom and banquet circuit that these guys went on and were thrust into,
everywhere.
It's a different animal. It just is. And they were kids, and I'm not making excuses for them, but that was a different beast. I mean, for years we thought about, man, how would the players on the Cubs team be treated if they win a World Series, right? And they actually accomplished it, and it happened. It happened while they were still supposed to be learning baseball instead of winning a World Series. So can you put all of that on Joe when it was too quick, too soon with these players and any players in any in Boston? Because that's the only brand that's comparable with the Red Sox when it first happened. And let's not forget, now they weren't necessarily young, and some of these players have been traded.
Yeah, that was a veteran team, right?
Yeah, but because you think about what's the name, the Josh Beckett, and the chicken eating incident, and the beer,
Cowboy up and
how they
that.
got rid of Terry Francona because they felt that he wasn't holding them firm and everything like that. It's more comparable to that because there were two starving franchises, and even that was the second World Series for the Red Sox, basically. Yeah. But still, it's a different animal, and I don't think people think about that a lot when you talk about the youth of these players and winning that so early compared to veteran-rich teams. And guys know the grind, and how much they had to put in to get to there. These guys were more like, man, this is how it is. For anybody that doesn't know or wasn't born, there was a player on the Bulls. They called him the Tank, but it was Scott Williams from North Carolina. And Scott Williams basically got drafted the year the Bulls first won the title. And basically for the next 3 years, he won an NBA championship. And he was a helpful piece to that as a big man.
He was serviceable.
Yeah, he was serviceable. And he got a huge contract from the 76ers after that.
Sure did.
But the point was, he never really knew the NBA. He was on a damn rock star team from the beginning. Yeah, he was spoiled. So, like, how can you really come to grips with the monotony of every day and how to get over it?
Well, that's when you have your manager step in and try to at least kind of keep you grounded. That's when you have your front office to try to make sure you replenish talent and keep
the clowns.
in the zoo and the magicians and everything like that. That's when you have those older guys kind of come in and try to keep you grounded. And like I said before, the young players started off hot. That rocket took off, but it maybe took off a little bit too soon. So I don't know. I just think
I like
it's going to be interesting to see.
I like the way that they're talking this year. It sounds like Chris Bryant is sounding like he's got a little bit of I want to show you this year type thing, and maybe trying to get the middle finger out for a lot of people. So I like hearing that kind of stuff from the team, and hopefully they can all galvanize around that. I think the weird thing, though, with Joe is what are you going to get out of the coaching staff? Because they got rid of everybody after 16 to get his guys in, like Chili Davis and his pitching coach last year. That's escaping my mind right now. And now you switch over to Tommy Hotovy and Iapoce. Who is going? How does this reflect the team? Because now you're going back more to the 16 model versus the 18 model that they did with Chili Davis and, of course, the pitching coach.
So,
real quick, and that was the voice of Ryan Bukovinsky. Did I get that right?
Bukovinsky.
Bukovinsky. Our new executive producer. As our old executive producer's phone keeps buzzing the table.
Well, we'll definitely see how the team is midway through the season. The first half is always kind of rocky, but the great thing about Joe and these Cubs, the second half, they take off. If that second half doesn't take off,
supposedly this is the year of urgency. So that second half is going to be coming out right away.
If that second half isn't great,
what should happen that second half? Joe Madden should just walk out on their ass.
I'm done.
No money? No money. All right, deuces.
Where's my wine?
All you hear is that
Where's my wine and weed in the vein? Let's go.
Do a burnout in the middle of Rick. With his middle finger up at T.O.
With the championship. Yeah, I got you this mother.
It's like George Costanza.
Years, and this how you treat me, mother.
George Costanza with the Yankees got the trophy behind him, just driving in a circle.
Around.
All right, well, come on, man, have some more fun. D and Davis Show, recording right here at 670 The Score.
Hey, this is Rich Campbell from the Chicago Tribune, and you're listening to the D and Davis Show.
D and Davis Show, last segment. We got a lot to get into. Tony Gill grabbing rank up here told us to sit our asses back down.
I gave out suggestions.
Shout out to T.
That's all I'm doing now. Suggestions.
You shut up.
Who let him back in?
Right. All right, so look, Robert Kraft, he was like, not guilty.
I don't understand this.
First, we talked about this a little bit on Dan Davis to Flip. We post that every Monday, so please check it out if you haven't checked it out. Subscribe, 5-star, all of that. Tony would say unsubscribe, subscribe again, so unsubscribe. Make sure the numbers are as fraudulent as possible. But Robert Kraft's attorney came out today and he said he's not guilty. They're definitely trying to make sure and suppress, similar to Jussie Smollett's victory today, suppress the videotape of him in the Dream Chaser chain getting his nookie from that unfortunate lady, and she is a victim.
What was it really nookie? It was more of a just a.
Hey, I don't know what Robert Kraft called his nookie.
No, he got in there.
You don't know?
So he did. He got
in there.
I
Listen, y'all. This is some of the stuff you're going to get from Ryan.
I knew it.
Ryan is dirty.
You got to make sure.
He brings elements of heathenism that we need. But
no, he was going through the entire routine.
He was doing the do.
It was chest day.
Ooh.
I don't even know what that means, and I love it. I would just start saying that to somebody. I'm like, it was chest day.
Wow.
What the hell does chest day mean?
The routine.
Oh.
Of the formidable posterior muscle.
Oh.
Brings that sensuality.
Oh, hello.
See, that's the type of knowledge you're going to get now on D and Davis.
Well, hello. No, this is dumb on his part because I saw that he said he wanted a trial by jury.
Yeah,
he wanted a trial. Dude, okay, so what if they come in and say Exhibit A, chest day? You know, it's kind of like roll the tape. Roll the tape. Let's just see what's going on, and it's out there for everybody to see.
Let me say this. One, they may suppress. It may be suppressed, but this is another thing.
To the jury?
Now, yeah, and the jury, remember, is people from the area.
Oh, so they probably been there before.
That's not a regular folks area down there in Florida. You got to have that bank. So there'll be other dudes now. I know I went there myself. This is okay. There's nothing. Listen, there was an outcry undercover. If you listen to some sports reporters talking about this when it broke, that basically was like, this is no big deal. If you looked underneath what they were really saying at the time. Yeah. So, and that's just reporters. So I'm just saying, if it's a jury with your peers and they all are coming from that, I don't know if it's a ward or however they do it down there in Florida, but if they're coming from there, and it's not to say the whole area is affluent, but they're affluent, and they're going to be more in like-minded in step, I would think, with Robert Kraft.
I wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt right there. I think when the prosecutors lay it out, the state prosecutors lay it out, and then let's say the video is not suppressed, and you know what he's doing, I would find it hard to believe. But you know what? As of recent, but the past about 3-4 months, I have been shocked by people's stupidity and things that not going the way you think it's going to go. You never know what's going to happen, right? But I don't understand why his pride is this into it. Brother, you went to go get you something going on. You got your little side something. You got caught. Yes, everybody know that you a Johnny, you out there buying something. You're 70-something years old. Some people be like, man, you know what? He an old guy. Yeah, he rich. That's what they do. Let him go. You're going to have that. Why fight it? Just take your slap on the wrist. Like I said before, you're in your mid-70s. Okay, well, you know you're going to get suspended by the NFL. They're going to have to do something. What you going to do? If you beat the case, go to Goodell like, hey, man, I beat this. You can't suspend me. Nah, dude, you're gonna get popped.
I think his suspension would be lesser.
Okay, where to go from 6 games to 4 games?
I'm just saying, I think it would be. Well, I think they're gonna hit him with draft picks.
Okay, all right. Instead of 2 drafts, 3 you get 2.
He still would get in trouble with the NFL just for the morality sake of it. But I still think if he's proven innocent in the court of law, it benefits him compared to if he settles. Because if he settles, then clearly it's an omission of guilt.
I understand that. But as I've said, and I think a lot of reporting has come out, we know it's you.
He said it.
We know it's you.
Listen, he rich.
Don't let your money and pride get in front of everything.
Listen, did you tell that?
Just take it.
Did you tell that to Jussie Smollett?
Well, Jussie said he had a long life ahead of him.
I'm just saying, winning.
He have a long life ahead of him.
People out here winning in the streets, man. People out here winning, bro. If you got the right person in the right place, like a state's attorney,
yeah,
recusal, unaccusal, Eddie send it to the FBI.
Then was an Operation Push. That's okay.
Yeah, if you got the right, and listen, I'm sure Robert Kraft knows a couple people that know a couple people.
Oh, he knows them.
All right, so he's sitting there before, instead of admitting it, making sure that he checks all the right boxes to see if he can get up out of this bad boy.
But we know he did it.
It don't matter. Guess who else we know that did something probably? Jussie Smollett.
But I would say at least with this, we already have been told that yes, we do have footage of you doing this. With Jussie, it was kind of like, man, we heard it was some footage. We had a grainy shadow with 2 dudes walking away. We had to piece things together. There is no piecing together. They put the cameras in there. It was in the room. They know everything. They saw you. Why fight this? Just take it. Just take it.
The confidence is you will not embarrass me.
He's already been embarrassed.
When if the tape comes out and be made public,
I don't need to see the tape. They already wrote it out.
I think that's what it's different.
Listen, that's
because words are gonna fade. We're like, y'all remember that time Robert Kraft got caught?
Yeah.
We're like, yeah.
It's gonna hop up on a porn site.
It's called Ray Rice.
But
hearing about it is different from when you see the
video.
Yeah, Dream Chaser chain on.
But that's
naked.
But that's thinking
naked.
It's the confidence that, hey, I am Robert Kraft. You will not embarrass me in public if I don't want it. Nothing that I'm against will be put in fruition because of I'm Robert
But
Kraft.
that's if someone from the state's attorney's office leaks it out and then it hops out there. It's only going to be within the trial.
Remember, now his lawyers are saying that basically they did illegal searches. They said that pulling over that car, something like that was wrong, and there was another thing they're citing is wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the state's attorney is trying to prove that they did everything on the up and up.
Oh, yeah, they have to.
All right, and speaking of things being leaked, let's not forget Colin Kaepernick's settlement this last week. All right,
They can't do anything.
Because things get leaked is the point that I'm making with the the Wall Street Journal thing. I'm just still pointing out. You got to remember, Robert Kraft, we see sex tapes, made Kim Kardashian a superstar and all that type of stuff. But this is the thing. We don't see NFL owners getting that type. Like, it's not going to be good when people are like, man, Robert out here with that meat.
Well, I know you was hanging like that, Robert.
Vixen's not going to come and be like, man, listen, let's get a deal. We got to get this in the streets, right? So
Cardi B going to come back like, you know what? I ain't got a drug. You to get with you.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that.
You hanging like that, Robert?
Yeah, ooh, that's all that Kraft meat is serious.
Dream chaser.
So I think I'm definitely in tune with what Tony says. His name, and remember if you can, I was talking about last week, and I was bringing up the ethical will that he has, and talk just saying of how necessarily that's one of the more important things. I mean, his name is very important to him, and to see it sullied in a fashion that this would probably make it, he's going to try to fight it. And look, think about it like this.
My man's name is already
Let me
sullied.
think about it like this. That's
Soiled
what you
and
say.
sullied.
But that's what you say. But right. Sullied to the degree that it is now is different from sullied to when young boys be like, I saw him on the tape with that lady. That's the dude from the tape. Remember, he did the 3-stroke twirl, backflip, dip. Oh, yeah.
And with the dream chaser spin at the same time.
Spinning around my neck. Like, so, I mean, like I say, I'm more in tune with what Tony is saying about it. But then speaking about certain things, breaking news in Chicago, and it's funny, this has been such a polarizing thing in general, I'm sure around the nation, but particularly here in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Jussie Smollett, case cleared. It's also been sealed, so the details will not be getting out. He did not get his bond back. So basically,
okay. So they got his money.
They got his money. They got $10,000 out of it.
Okay.
So basically, the boy guilty. And I heard community service was one of the reasons.
He was hanging out in Operation Push, so he did his community service. So he paid. So he didn't get back his bond. He did community service. What else? Is that it?
He got them Nigerian boys in a lot of trouble. And this is a crazy thing. Jussie Smollett, he's off. The Nigerian kids sat there and the police let them go for corroborating with them in the first place.
Yeah.
So people have been like, so this means Jussie's innocent. Not
No,
really.
I don't think it sounds like he's innocent at all.
Yeah, not really. But
He
that's
come
what.
to plea in
But
a
see, a lot
sense.
of people also don't look at necessarily read between the lines though. They just see that he's cleared and it's sealed.
And it's sealed.
They don't even pay attention to the seal part.
Yeah.
That what that
Think he was actually going to do time for this? I don't think he.
I don't think anybody with common sense really thought he was going to do
Yeah, I don't think nobody thought he was going to do time.
But you thought at least because he's that.
You gonna see him on the damn ride picking up garbage? I see you lying, mother. Jesse, pick up that box.
Chicago Superintendent Eddie Johnson and Mayor Rahm Emanuel had a press conference, and one of the things that Eddie Johnson pointed out. Eddie Johnson, who got blindsided by Kim Fox at her chicanery. Listen, first of all, Kim Fox, me and you was on Twitter, baby, going back and forth talking about going to SIU. And back then, we was all lovey-dovey.
You hit up today?
No.
You should hit up.
When she got elected, she got rid of me.
Oh, she forgot about you?
She totally forgot about
Like
me.
how Isaiah Thomas was following you, then you put that picture of MC Hammer up on there. And he was like, unfollow. I remember that. All MC Hammer. All of them. Like, what is this?
Pumps in the bump.
Unfollow.
Yep, Isaiah Zeke let me be because he only followed me because I went in on his Jordan hate. He was like, I'm gonna follow him, right? Then he let me go. But Eddie Johnson, they say was blindsided by what came out today as far as the state attorney's office letting Jussie Smollett off the hook. He came out and said how upset he was. Smollett said that he wanted to go to trial and prove his innocence in a court of law. And use this to say, well, clearly he's innocent because he copped out or whatever.
He got the plea.
Yeah. So it just was an interesting turn of events. I've tried to avoid it today, but again,
it was too funny.
And this week coming up on the flip, we're going to have Sean Davis, producer at ESPN 1000, one of our brothers. He's going to be in here next week. We're going to have the boy Illinois. We corresponded, and the funny thing I was telling the guys, I retweeted something that he said about Jussie Smollett, basically like, y'all, basically what we're saying, like, he copped a plea and just, talking about it or whatever.
Yeah, basically.
Because I was going to stay away from it, but he worded it so well, I was like, okay, I'll retweet this. Because this is kind of how I feel. Then I'm going to back away from it. Because see on Facebook and on Twitter how people were going back and forth. And I wanted to say.
What were they going back and forth about? Please tell me.
A lot
I didn't
of
see the
people
back and
initially
forth.
just saw he's cleared and thought, see y'all was jumping to conclusions. And no, this is another big thing. The major thing was, y'all know never to trust the Chicago PD. That was the big.
Well, that's true.
The big thing, yeah. That's what. And also remember
that part is true.
Yeah, and there were a terrible amount of leaks in this investigation.
Yeah, wish they said CPD was going to look into about all these.
They
leaks.
not looking at nothing.
They ain't looking at nothing. Oh, yeah.
Add it to the list.
Eddie Johnson went in his office and flipped it over and let out a couple of MFers. Yes, he copped the plea. This is typically what happens. I don't know why people thought that he was going to do some time for this. I think the reason why Eddie was more
Give him the chair.
I think why, and rightfully so, him and Ron Emanuel. Listen, you don't want to be leaders of a city, of elected officials of a city, and have someone come in and do what he did. He's not from here. Yes, he lives here, he acts here, he works here, but you don't want anybody doing that. Eddie was on TV. He was on Good Morning America. He did a round of interviews, just like Jussie Smollett did a round of interviews. Jussie did this, like, oh no, he guilty. And then Eddie came right behind, like, hold my beer, I'm about to do all the interviews. So I'm sure he probably looks like a fool. Like, man, y'all have me on, I'm out here repping the city, repping the cops. Mm-hmm. And then Kim Fox, who recused herself from all this, don't come in and open my door and say, we let him go. What is this? I'm sure he was upset about that. Ron saying his two-piece, he out of here, but whatever. But I'm sure that's probably why he was upset. He did all this. And people talking about all the manpower of the detectives, they could have been working on other cases. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. We live in the city of Chicago. It's a lot of cases that don't get solved. We don't hear nothing about, and the detectives are at work all the time, probably getting some overtime. And we don't hear about nothing, and there's a bunch of cold cases. I don't want to hear not now person. Can I say not now person? Mm-hmm. Not now person talking about, oh, they could have moved those detectives to this case for this person, this case for this person. They asses don't do it now, and they got all the time in the world. Mm-hmm. Shut up. You don't know what's going on in Chicago.
I know. That's always the convenient excuse, right?
Oh, yeah, we got all this manpower. Y'all asses don't do nothing now. Nothing. So, not nothing, but no, not a lot, I should say. So, yeah, I'm sure that's probably why he was upset. He went out there bigging up the city. It's kind of like, and the state attorney downstate, it's kind of like, yeah, well, not downstate, but the state attorney's like, yeah, we're going to let him go. I'm sure he was pissed about that, but he copped a plea. What y'all expect? He copped a plea.
A lot of people didn't. It wasn't worded as copping a plea. I know us being.
Yeah, he copped a plea.
But people saw cleared and ran with seeing cleared.
And especially, I'm sure his lawyers is talking to the state attorney office. They saying, okay, we do this, we do that. Okay, we agree to this. Can you please seal the records? And technically, everybody say those records are sealed. Those records, if they want them open, they'll open them back up.
There'd be no reason to do that.
No, it's no reason to do it. Yeah. But I'm just saying,
it won't be
they
like,
can't do it if they want to.
There's another case. Like, he'd have to be like, he did it again. Smollett was jumping. We got to find out from the old.
Zip, open it back up.
What's the precedent for this? Get the Smollett case.
Smollett versus the city of Chicago. So, nah, man, everybody calm down. I know it looks bad, but he copped the plea, y'all.
All right, this is something you pointed out. Breaking during the show, passing interference is now reviewable by the officials.
Yes.
The NFL owners approved a massive philosophical expansion of its replay review system, bowing to the pressure from coaches and fans. This is from ESPN, who were outraged by a missed pass interference call in the NFC Championship game. For 1 year only, pass interference, both offensive and defensive, will be reviewable. The first penalty and judgment calls ever to be added to the list of approved reviews. Moreover, coaches will be able to challenge non-calls for pass interference. The replay booth, in conjunction with the league's officiating office in New York, will initiate those challenges in the final 2 minutes of each game.
So you can only do it within the final 2 minutes?
It seems like right now. That's
so you can't throw the flag like, hey.
I'm not sure. We have to see someone else break this. This is just me reading it from right here.
Okay.
That's one thing I wanted to see here and read this before we went to it to find out some of the details. And that stood out to me when they mentioned the final 2 minutes, that if this is only going to be over the final 2 minutes. Also, owners made two expected votes earlier. They made permanent the 2018 changes to the kickoff rule, which have been made of a 1 year trial basis. They also voted to eliminate all blindside blocks. the head.
Got a couple more too. The Chiefs' proposal for changing overtime rules that's tabled until the spring league meeting in May, and the Broncos' proposal to get that 4th and 15 instead of the onside kick that was shot
which
down.
was kind of that was one was interesting to me because I felt like,
well, you can't do an onside kick nowadays.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it still happens. But
4th and 15 with some of these teams, man, it's a lot bankable than an onside kick.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. A lot of teams will elect.
It's a lot more bankable than an onside kick now, and then let alone the pass interference. That you look, let's just throw it and see what happens. Like just even think about that. So that one was pretty interesting to me. I don't know how I feel about it. And even though, like you said, through some of the rules changes, it's definitely made onside kicks almost impossible. But we still see some onside kicks take place this season. So it's of course,
I think it was just like an all-time low that they've had.
It's not going to be the same frequency whatsoever.
No, right.
But still, that 4th and 15 is like, listen, some of these teams, if you give them that, man, they going to run it up.
And with the coaches' challenges on UPIs, OPIs, DPIs, that can be done just regular. First 28 minutes of each half, regular coaches' challenge. Then it's subject to booth review.
I get what you're saying.
All right,
so it's just
basically
how it is now.
Yeah, it's a
no
regular
extra
challenge.
challenges.
So,
It just if you see a pass interference that was not called, you can challenge, or if it was called, you can challenge.
I mean, you are leaving it up to the judgment of the booth. I mean, to the umps and the refs, obviously. But let me ask you this,
which will go great in the NFL.
Now let's see. Yeah, I know, right? So let me ask you this: Would it be better to just get rid of the spot foul for the pass interference and just go like, hey, we just give you 15 yards?
That's a good one. Like college.
I go back and forth on that.
But see, the only problem with that, man, if a dude got it in the end zone, because you know what you would do then? Outside of 15, foul him.
Right.
I mean, in some cases, you do see that when somebody gets like grotesquely beat.
But think about it. But I mean, still, it would make no sense not to foul any deep
tackle
pass.
him.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely.
I agree.
You make like any deep ball, clobber him just like he's
it's
like
gonna be like NFL blitz.
Like so. No, that wouldn't work because especially with some of these smart coaches now, they would just take advantage totally of the whole thing. NBA awards. It seems now that Greek Freak isn't gonna get that MVP.
You say is not. See, can I'll argue for the sake of
what was
argument.
you looking at, D? What was you just looking over at? That damn
Tony's
phone?
phone. What are you still playing that game? Oh Lord, you got some important stuff. Put
emails from Mitch.
Oh, okay. Well, we know about those.
Shout out Mitch Rosen.
Yeah, shout out to Mitch. Definitely love him. Hey, for the sake of argument, I'll go for Greek.
Not for the sake. Do you feel it's Greek?
Well, I'm 50-50 on it because I look at the offensive not explosion, but the sheer genius of what we seeing in James Harden. I mean, he's in the conversation when you talk about some of the greatest of all time putting the ball in the basket. He's there. It is what it is. But you look at Giannis and what he's been able to do with Milwaukee. He's a guy who definitely do everything.
Can't shoot threes efficiently.
Not efficiently, but you put him on a squad who everybody else can, and he can facilitate. He can go low. I mean, he just jam on you. I mean, he can just do so much. And the team, and we talking about MVP, I think the record should mean something.
He's in the East.
He's in the East, but they've been consistently number one.
I'm not knocking.
So I think that's going to be. I think it's going to be weighed into it.
How many points is Jonathan averaging this season?
It's about 24, 25?
I think it's like 26, 27.
26, 27?
How much is James?
It's averaging 27 points.
27? So what is James, like 29, 30?
No, dog. 36.
36? For the season?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
36.4.
Yes.
Good
let you
God.
know. You ain't paying attention.
And they are both
36 for the season?
So who you got for the MVP now?
But still, though.
But nothing.
But still, though. But still, though.
30.
I'm
a Giannis guy.
Wait a minute, hold on.
I want Giannis to win. Guess what?
I think
it's James Harden Award.
I think for the record and what they may be able to do, and it's not as if he has a squad, and I already know Chris Paul hasn't been there for the entire season.
Or Cliff Capella.
And Cliff Capella.
So he's by himself.
And James has been able to keep them the position that they're in. But the makeup of that team with the Bucks and what Giannis has been able to do with them, and yes, I am going to add in the record. I'm not saying, like I said before, I'm 50-50 on it. I appreciate and see what Giannis has done.
Harden is first and second in steals. And he's in the top in deflections.
I'm giving you my argument for John.
I'm just still pointing out that I know, but I want you to have a fully informed. I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you everything. He's first or second in steals. He's the same in deflections this season. So and we know that you can play the passing lanes and not be a great defender, but still, he is doing something on the defensive side. I'm Team Giannis. Know this. But when a dude averages 36 points a year, guess what? You got to give him. And again, I said this. To me, that's the only team that can really beat Golden State.
And
I told you that. But
36.4, 7.5 assists, 6.4 rebounds.
Yeah, dude. And he was last year's
MVP. He was
incumbent. And he should have won it before. And he took it when he said, "I just watched at the NBA awards." It was laughable, and he took his game to another level. I want Giannis to win. James Harden probably deserves it, and I've just come around to this.
I like the scoring numbers, but it's Giannis for me, and here's why. James Harden's second best player is a Hall of Famer. Giannis' second best player is Chris Middleton.
There you go.
I mean, Giannis affects so much of the game, and
it's amazing how they built that team with him.
And because of what Harden's doing on the offensive end, and I'm not a James Harden fan, but I enjoy watching him put up those gaudy numbers.
Yeah, you do hate James Harden.
Yeah,
emphasis on he hates it. Make sure you save that biasness in it. It's always hate. So that's in this too.
Plenty of text messages.
But people don't look at just how good of a defender Giannis has been this season. Like it's in, and I think people are going to notice it in the playoffs. Yeah. Where if somebody gets hot, they're going to sick Giannis on them, like how like teams used to sick LeBron on people in the fourth quarter. And I think that's when people's going to notice, like, wait, he can play defense too? And they're like, no, he's been doing this all year. Yeah. But I mean, he just affects so much a part of the game. They're about to be the number 1 overall seed in the NBA. Yeah. And it's the Bucks. All right. And I do give credit to Budenholzer and what he's done to change that system around Giannis to get like the most effective
all the shoes around him and
out of him. But man, I mean, he's just taking his game up to, and I know real quick, James is taking his game up to another level, but Giannis, all right,
but two things,
and they have an actual shot to get into the NBA Finals. The Rockets ain't going to the NBA Finals.
2 things. You have one, Harden's in the West. And 2, so we're talking about records, you have to factor that into this also. 2, you can say that Harden has Chris Paul. Chris Paul wasn't there, but Middleton was there all season and is an all-star now. So it's not, and on top of that, if we're going to go players, his second and third best player weren't there for a large part of the season on his team this year, and Cliff Capella and then Chris Paul, and they went from being the second worst team in the West to now a team in the playoffs. In the West by himself that he's done this. Again, I want Giannis to win, but taking my biasness away, it's Chris Paul. I mean, it's James Harden.
Do we think that the voters are going to factor in how far they're going to go?
One last part, too, to go along with this, too. History has been broken. You know how I felt when and this will be the 3rd season, when Westbrook won the MVP due to the fact that he had averaged a triple-double, but had like the 4th or 5th best team in the West. Mm-hmm. And back in the days, you had to have at least the 3rd best record damn near in the league
to get the MVP.
You know, your team had to be up there. That's gone now. So even when Tony's talking about having the best record, that factor isn't as valid as what it was 5 years ago. But listen, for the history of the NBA,
I think they're going to factor that in.
I'm not saying they won't be factored.
The Westbrook. Well, the history of the league, if you just want to do just the last decade, Westbrook is the anomaly.
Yes.
Usually this award, best team, best player.
Mm-hmm. But isn't this an anomaly year right now?
I mean, it didn't work. The anomaly didn't work last year. Harden had the best team. No. It was the best player on the best team. in the regular season.
No.
What's the anomaly?
This is he's
The
talking about
anomaly
West.
is in terms of finishing.
No. You know why he didn't? No.
No.
It's not an anomaly, Tony. If he does it back-to-back seasons, that's why he didn't get to see. That's why he didn't get it. So the anomaly this year is the fact that a guy's has averaging 36 and someone hasn't done it since Michael Jordan in 87, 88. That's the anomaly this year. That you got a guy averaging almost 37 points in the entire season. You've never seen that in your life.
No.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not denying how crazy it is.
I think you are.
No, I'm not.
Because isn't not.
We're splitting hairs. We're splitting hairs here.
That's what people do in this format.
Yeah.
They split hairs. but is it not an anomaly? Is what I'm saying.
That is an anomaly since Jordan has done it. Exactly.
Okay, that's what. So that's.
But there have been other players who averaged 37 before.
But there has been a player that averaged a triple-double too. It goes off if you haven't seen it when a player.
It's only been 2.
But when a player, how many players do you think averages 37 points
throughout the history of the NBA?
Yeah, give me your list real quick because it's only been 2.
Mike?
Yeah, that's it, bro. It's only been 2.
Yeah. It's only been 2 players that average a triple-double.
Yeah.
But I think we see scoring at a high volume.
No.
These
not like
kids
this. Ain't been scoring.
No, not like this.
That. We
not
grew
like
up with this. Is the thing. In the early 80s, you had Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins, maybe Malone. You had like 3 players in the mid 80s. You had 3 players finishing over 30 points per game. They didn't grow up with, and this was when they could hurt you. They didn't grow up like their best. Their leading player averages, the top player averages 30.
That's why people say, well, if Michael was playing right now, he'd probably average 50.
Yeah.
Oh,
they were getting
goodness.
They were getting beat up and averaging 30 points and not shooting threes.
I listen to people that vote on these type of things, and they've all been kind of relatively consistent this year. Zach Lowe, Ryan Russillo, they're very impressed by the scoring, but they also feel that if you give Steph Curry the type of usage that James Harden is getting, that Curry can do it better. And they've been saying that this whole year. I'm saying if you put them in that position where, okay, go out there and score as much as you can, then they can do it. But also, you got to look at James Harden doesn't like to miss games or take games off. That for me, that question is okay. You're not looking at the bigger picture. Then you want this MVP, that's fine. If you want to be that dude, go be that dude.
But players in the past didn't take no days off either, though. I mean,
but what I'm saying is
you had to play.
That's the kids talking.
But the teams, no, I'm talking about now.
He wants to steal your money.
we talking about now.
You
when you look
play.
at teams that are looking to win championships. Like every game doesn't matter, especially when you know you're going to make it to the playoffs. And Houston is a very good team.
No,
yes,
they just got into the
that's
situation
true,
where now they have home court advantage. Right?
Who? The Houston Rockets?
Yeah, they didn't even have home court advantage.
They're number 3 right now.
He had to play. It wasn't a situation. His team, it wasn't just he kept them afloat. He got them going.
I'm going to ask you this question. This before you had...
Wait, one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the Zach Lowe thing, Golden State wouldn't win if Steph was doing that as well as Houston. And I'll tell you
this, he did that in the 72-10 year.
No. I'm talking about if he carried the team by
73-9.
If he carried the team by himself doing it is what I'm saying. If you gave him the green light to do this on the team,
you don't think Steph can do this?
He's going to get hurt. And that you know
his build
that big booty took us on James Harden. You let Steph go to the lane like James Harden's been going. You know damn well, Tony, that Steph is going to get hurt if he has a usage like this. It's not going to work like that.
He doesn't have the offense either to be like James Harden.
Whoa.
Who, Steph?
Yeah.
Well, the thing I would say with this.
So.
Hot take right there. Hot take right there.
It's mostly based on your point that he's not big enough to do all the type of things that Harden does to score.
He can't consistently
get to the free throw line like Harden does.
He even get to the point.
But he shoot you.
But if he's not on,
he cannot consistally get to in the lane.
No, he's not the same kind of player.
I get what you're doing. I'm with you because that's a hot take. But to your point, how James Harden is thicker, it allows him to take on a lot more contact going to the hole, and like you just said, to always get those free throws that he gets. Also,
and he's a master of that.
And in all fairness, if Steph was doing that, let's just be honest, Steph's going to get hurt. Like it's not even a question of us hating. I love Steph Curry.
It's been a while since he really been hurt though.
What's a while to you, bro?
He was out his playoff season with the ankle. He was out.
He been
for a
out this
while.
year, bro.
Yeah, he was out.
No. I'm talking about like major injuries. He hasn't been out.
Steph Curry's out every
major
year.
Injuries.
He was out. He's out every year, bro. Right, every year Steph Curry's out. So that like he's not. If Steph Curry coming to the lane taking on that contact like that, he's gonna get that.
Well, he's gonna get knocked up. He's a small guy.
Gonna shrink up.
But this is a question I wanted to ask y'all. So, do you think the voters, and Tony, you say you've been listening to them, do you think they're going to take into consideration what they project the team is going to do in the playoffs? I know everybody always says this is a regular season award, but I do think that people project also when they make this award.
From what I've been hearing, just from voters in this city and then voters via podcast, they really like Giannis. I think they're leaning Giannis.
From what I've been hearing, from what I've been hearing, I'm a Giannis guy. They've changed the last week and a half. I've seen Zach Lowe last week talking the same thing, and that's listen. It's part of the thing. Even why I'm like, it's not going to stop. I've been caping for Giannis, but look, I don't think most people, and you just found out. I think people think about and they hear about Harden's per game average, and they think it's still associated with the hot streak that he had, and it's not his actual yearly
doing it all
average.
through the year.
That's the thing. People people don't know it's 36 points during this season.
36 points.
What a great stretch he's had over the last
Exactly.
10.
Yeah, that whole season. But I think now it's starting to shift. That's the thing to me where I'm kind of like, I think it's going to happen. If you asked me this 2 weeks ago, I'm like, it's Giannis. I think it's shifting now, man. People are going to Harden now, man.
I don't like the look at what they're going to do in the playoffs thing, because that's totally biased towards the Eastern Conference. Name the player. Because nobody has to go through the Warriors on the East.
No, very true.
But if Harden didn't have to go through them,
but that's why I always ask. That's why I asked the question.
But
people should look at it as a regular season award for the best player, but some people don't always put that factor into it.
I can throw that off too, and I think Tony, you will back this up. I think most people still view Houston as the only team that can beat Golden State. So that especially
OKC is filled
if
back.
you
Definitely.
had to pick a team, because they're saying Golden State is going to win it.
But
regardless.
if you have to pick a team,
if you had to pick a team, except for Stan Van Gundy thinks the best competition is coming from.
Again, it's Stan Van Gundy. But people think if you have to pick a team, it's Houston.
Yeah.
And I told you that a month ago.
They got the best.
A week after Paul came back, I'm like, Houston is clicking, right? Like it's Houston. So if we're even using what you can do in the playoffs, Houston is the team that's viewed as being able to beat the juggernaut that's known as Golden State.
Be able to beat, or that it's different than closest chance to beat. This is a weaker Houston team than the
regardless. Who is the best? They have the better odds than anyone else. Are we not saying that? Yes or no? Is that not what you're saying? They have the best odds. That's what you're saying.
No one
not
believes
that they're
in
going to win. We're talking about the odds.
I'm not going to shoot it down.
No, nobody believes in no Denver.
All right, I'm just asking a question. I'm throwing it out there.
Not to shoot it down.
I'm throwing it out
there. Man, Milwaukee.
You know, dog. You got what's the name?
Without Brogdon
and Mirotic too for the next 2 weeks. And who's to say Mirotic's gonna come back and be healthy throughout the playoffs? All right, real quick with Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor came out and said he's retiring from
formerly
UFC.
known as in mixed martial arts.
All right, but the thing is, part of the reason he's retiring is because he doesn't feel like he has enough equity in the UFC. He's been fighting. I think once he even asked for partial ownership.
Yes, he did.
All right, so that's the news of the day. Everyone said basically he's coming back. That in 2016 he announced he was retiring and he came back. I think I
Not
even
the
seen
first
a
time
clip
he
of
done
Ronda Rousey. But this is the thing, and they've known this in Ireland, even though they can't necessarily name the suspect. He is being looked at in an investigation of a sexual assault. So people viewed it, perhaps, I'm not saying it is as a connection, even though people are refuting it and saying there is no connection whatsoever. But since that investigation is ongoing in Ireland, it took place in South Dublin, not too far away from where he grew up. So some lady alleged that Conor McGregor sexually assaulted her, and people felt and were trying to fish. I'm just going to say fish. If that is that part of the reason why he came out and said that today about necessarily retiring. So that's the news for Conor McGregor.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, not on that, but him saying that he wants a part of UFC because he's an anomaly definitely within that. I mean, he's made like $100 million over 2 fights, and the UFC. I listened to a podcast. Well, actually, it was on NPR. I listened to it live, a Freakonomics episode, and they was talking about the worth of the major sports, and they was talking about the UFC, and they was talking about how these guys bought it for like $2 million, and then they turned around and sold it for God, I want to say some billions, but I think it was some billions.
Dana White also got an extension on his contract.
Yeah, now they on ESPN, so it's flourishing. But these fighters are all independent contractors, and if one of them, I guess wants to get a piece of the company, it's not like LeBron James can go in and say like, hey, Adam Silver, I want to buy a piece of the NBA. It's not like that. Conor McGregor actually can can do that if he so desires.
They shouldn't give it to him.
Who you talking about? Conor McGregor?
Yeah. And I would say,
it's up to them, but I wouldn't do it.
If he was younger, I would maybe be interested. But one thing about outside of him, for the most part, with the UFC, they've survived when their best fighters have left. They keep reinventing themselves. He's an outlier. He revs it up more than anybody has as far as attention. But they're going to have to come to a day, and he's not that good. He's not a great fighter any longer anyway.
His focus isn't even really there anymore.
No point to give him that when he's not. He's still box office for at least another 3 fights, but he's not a great fighter, so why give it to him? Again, if he had more leverage in youth, I'll be interested in it, but there's no reason to set the precedent that the next up-and-coming fighters feel that they need to get equity in the company while they're still young, and he's not that great right now to give him something like that, so I wouldn't give it to him.
Until they go public like the WWE and somebody can go in and buy shares of it, no.
He wants them to give it to him for his sweat equity.
I know.
I wouldn't want to be a wrestler and I have to go buy shares of the WWE. I want you to give it to me for what I'm doing for the WWE.
Exactly. But no, I'm with you. No business is going to do that, and especially with fighters, because that next fight can be your last fight.
Over.
It could be over. I mean, you saw Ronda Rousey, you saw McGregor, Jones, who had all his issues. Mm-hmm. You have these stars kind of bubble up. They are, the UFC has been
Holly Holmes is back.
Holly Holmes is back, right. But the UFC has been like super, super high for about the past 10 to 15 years, you want to say? Mm-hmm. So it's still it's like in its infant stages when it comes to major sports here in America. So until they get more people in there and be really to bubble them up, I think if they gave them actually health coverage and not being so much of independent contractors, you probably would get more people to kind of do it, because the way of the fluctuate for your pay, not saying this would be good business for them, but the fluctuate what they pay, and you see one guy probably make about $10,000 based off a fight, and then you see Conor McGregor making $100 million. It's just so crazy.
From the Mayweather fight, or just for his?
For this past couple of fights, I think he's generated about $100 million.
He's made or generated?
Hell, I may want to say he made.
All right.
I think you want to say he made that much.
Another issue that I think you would kind of come up if you gave him equity and ownership. He's a lightning rod for controversy. And the last thing you want people to point to is that's one of your owners doing that. Mm-hmm. Having, even though it's for fight promotion's sake, at least that's what it's deemed, saying racist things. We just talked about, unfortunately, not saying that he did assault the young lady, but even with that, you can't look, the bus incident in New York.
That was crazy.
You can't
throw water bottles at them at the press conference.
You can't have, forget that, breaking glass in people's eyes.
I feel you.
You can't have an owner out there doing that. So that's just another reason why, dude. I'm always pro player, but I'm sorry, it doesn't seem realistic.
And that's why Dana White said, "Oh yeah, man, his whiskey game is going real strong. Yeah, you can go ahead and go." Hey, like I can't say it. They could probably find somebody else to come in. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in with us, hanging out with us. D and Davis Show, recording right here at 670 Score. Follow us on Twitter at D and Davis Show. And Instagram is the same thing, at D and Davis Show. We have iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Music, Stitcher, and the TuneIn app. This week you can find D and Davis Show and D and Davis The Flip. Facebook.com/D and Davis Show. And D and Davis Show at gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Demons1. Ken is on Twitter at That's Davis. Ryan, one more time. I'll write it down next time.
Ryan B. Ski.
Ryan B. Ski. There you go.
Is it Bukovetsky?
Bukovetsky.
All right.
Call him Ryan B.
We definitely want to thank Eli Hershkovich and also Jared Wyllys for joining us today. I will be on Sports Feed this weekend, so make sure you tune in.
Sports Feed?
I know you not talking.
I'm just saying. I'm gonna get you.
I know you not.
I don't care if you get me.
You mess up every day.
Eli Hershkovich.
Nope.
Damn.
But
I can say Sports Feed though.
Make sure you check me out on the Sports Feed. Shout out to Larry, Josh, and Jared. Always. D was on there this weekend. Shout out to D. We'll be back for the Flip. Sean Davis will be here with us this weekend, so it should be pretty entertaining. We get into probably be a little bit sports heavy, but we're getting to a lot, probably a little bit stuff church wise.
According to sources, mashup.
You should say that one more time? Say it on mic.
Yeah, say it, because I couldn't hear you.
You know, producer.
Dean Davis, according to sources. Sean Davis hosts a basketball podcast called According to Sources.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely, Sean's a bro. Davis loves, so he'll be in here with us, and it's much appreciated. So make sure you tune in for all this, and listen, don't do anything stupid before you hear from us again.
Keep your hands to yourself.